good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmaker's Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V, and we are bringing you yet another 2026 Women's College Flag Football Games recap. Recapping all the games from Week 7, that's March 23rd to March 29th, on all levels, junior college, D1, D2, NAIA, obviously, as well as our D3 levels here. We got a lot of games to talk about, some bangers of a game this last weekend, and a lot of games at that. Shout out the Flag Football Frenzy that went down in Campbellsville. That was unfortunately an event that we were supposed to go to, but some things came up and we could not go, but I heard it was a good one and we wish we were there. Shout out Coach Mack and all those great people down in Kentucky. But with that being said, we are still going to recap all these great games, and then make sure you tune in to Thursday's episode for our rankings and recognition, where we are going to talk about obviously all the great performances and then rank these teams, as it was a very, very busy week here. And as we are in the second half of the season, I think mostly officially, there are some rankings that are going to matter as far as seeding goes in some of these conference tournaments down the line, as well as the big NAIA national tournament that will be going down here soon. So a lot of implications there. And then on Thursday's episode, we will also talk about mid-season award races, hopefully. So be on the lookout for that. But let's go ahead and hop right into it. All right, it's Coach V here, and I got your Week 7 JUCO recap. All the games from March 23rd to March 29th. Kind of feels like a little bit of a lighter week for the JUCO levels here, but we are going to cover it regardless here. Starting with March 23rd, that is Monday. We have Ventura playing Irvine Valley. This is a big one with some big consequences here as far as the Cali JUCOs go. Ventura, Irvine Valley, and Saddleback all battling each other for that top spot. And Ventura goes ahead and gets a big win, 51-34 over Irvine Valley. Ava Ortman had 7 passing touchdowns, 4 of those to Honest Watson, as well as Smitty Smith, Sienna Angel, and then I think that is Annalisia Brewer, And then on top of that, Smith also caught a touchdown for Melissa Balestro, as well. The game started with an Honest Watson interception on the opening drive that set up that first long touchdown, and then a 4-touchdown second quarter, 3 of those being Ava Ortman finding Honest Watson, would go ahead and give them the early lead here. Irvine Valley would obviously score some points as well to make it closer, but unfortunately just not enough here as they fall 51-34. Ventura moving to 8-2, while Irvine Valley drops to 9-4, losing a couple here the last couple games, last couple big games, that is. Now, March 24th, speaking of one of the teams that were battling for that top spot here, we have Saddleback. They go ahead and play Norco, and they take care of Norco 40-0. Kira Clavio, their quarterback, goes ahead and throws 3 touchdowns to Olivia Green, Toledo Robinson, and Grace Holdart in this one. And then it looks like Alana Sumeli had 2 touchdown runs as Saddleback takes care of business. Going on to March 25th here, going away from the West Coast, we have Bryan and Stratton in Wisconsin playing Benedictine from Illinois here, and they would go ahead and beat them 48-0 in a dominant showing there as they take care of business. Going more east here, we have Daytona State playing UCF, their club team here, and that's a good club team over there, but they would lose a close one to them 13-12. And then staying east, but going up north, we have Howard Community College, I want to say from Maryland. They would go ahead and play Gallaudet, the power out of the United East here, and they would lose a tough one to a very good Gallaudet team, 52-0. I do have some stats here. Ramaya Malik, 6 of 18, 14 yards, 3 interceptions. Then not too much going on anywhere else. Negative rushing yards, and then I think only 2 players caught more than 1 pass, and nobody caught for more than 10 yards, so a tough go there. And then defensively, it was Ramaya Malik that led in flag pulls with 8, and then London Galbraith also had 2 pass breakups, but unfortunately not enough as Howard falls to the powerhouse Gallaudet. Now, Norco, they would go ahead and play Pomona Pitzer, and they would beat Pomona Pitzer 46-0 and improve to 7-3. Moving on to the next day, March 26th here, going back out west here, we have Irvine Valley playing Saddleback in another big matchup in the Cali JUCOs, and Irvine Valley goes ahead and gets a big win over them, 26-6 to improve to 10-4. Saddleback gets their second loss ever of the season as they drop to 15-2 as the battle of the Cali JUCOs continue on. Speaking of that battle here, staying in California, Cypress, they go ahead and play Golden West here, and they would actually lose 27-12. Cypress, a team who had a big win last week, losing a tough one to Golden West. And then last but not least here from the 26th, El Camino would go ahead and play USC's club flag football team, and they would drop one to them 19-13. Going on to the 28th, that is Saturday, we had a couple flag football games here from all over the country. Let's go ahead and start in the middle of it. Pratt Community College playing North Central Missouri. They would lose to them 39-12. Going to the East Coast here, DuPage traveling to Florida Gateway, but Florida Gateway beating the fellow junior college 74-0. And then LaGrange would play Florida Gateway as well, and Florida Gateway will get another 66-0 dominant win, undefeated on the day and on the weekend. Andrew would then play Huntington College here, but the struggles continue for Andrew as they lose 58-0. Going back to the Midwest here, Kodey goes ahead and plays Pratt Community College, and Pratt, they played them very close last time, and they would play them very close again here. A much closer margin of victory, though. Pratt gets by Kodey 14-12. Playmaker of the game, I do have to say, is Brooklyn Delgado, but she kind of had a rough day passing the ball, 15 of 29, 149 yards, 3 interceptions, but on the ground she made up for it with 20 carries for 113 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Her lead receiver was Jordan Carrier, who had 6 receptions for 80 yards, Reagan Hawkinson 4 for 43, Samaya Bailey 3 for 16, and Grace Wilson 2 for 13. On defense for them here, their lead flag puller was Jatavia Tarver, who had 4, as well as 2 pass breakups there, and then no interceptions or sacks that I could see of, but another decent win for them as they beat NAIA Kodey. Howard would then play 2 games here, and they would lose to Keene first 33-0, and then they would go ahead and play Pennsylvania Western University, California, which is in Pennsylvania still, and they would drop one to them 25-0. And then back to the West Coast here, Norco would go ahead and play Cal State Long Beach, I believe their club team, and they would go ahead and beat them 49-6. Then our last day, Sunday, March 29th, we had a couple games here. 3 of them. Norco would go ahead and play USC's club team and take care of them 14-7. And then Howard would have 2 more games on this day here. They would play Rutgers and then State University of New York, Cortland here. And they would lose to Rutgers 51-0 and then lose to Cortland 7-13. And there you go. That'll wrap up your JUCO recap from week 7. All right, now let's go ahead and talk D1, D2, women's college flag football. From week 7, I got your recap here from March 23rd all the way to March 29th here. Let's go ahead and hop right into it on the 23rd. That is Monday. We had Montclair State playing Long Island, and Long Island would fall to them 58-0, a tough one for them. Marissa Casiutolo, 8 of 26, 43 yards, 7 interceptions though, and then not too much really going on offense. Their lead receiver was Elise Learsey with 2 for 26, 2 receptions for 26 yards. Defensively, Manny Boyd led with 7 flagpoles and a sack. Elise Lears here had an interception as well, but just not too much going for Long Island right there. Moving on to March 24th, King playing NAI Milligan, a top team here, and they would fall to them, unfortunately, 62-0. Jade Salvador taking the snaps here at quarterback, 164 yards, 5 interceptions, which was a tough go for them. Receiving wise, Haley Mescal, 11 receptions, 64 yards. Janelle Duval, 5 for 35. Faith Carter, 5 for 25. And Alyssa Ramos, 7 for 25. But no scores on offense. Defensively, Jocelyn Kolowski here had 7 flag pulls. Nigel Arnold had 3 sacks. And Alyssa Ramos adds on yet another interception, but not nearly enough to stop the juggernaut that is Milligan. Going back out east here, we have Roberts Wesleyan playing Geneseo once more here, and Wesleyan getting a 52-0 win, very dominant win here. Amy Turner, 8 of 15, 104 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, also 58 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, and 1 20-yard reception. That is your playmaker of the game right there. She led in passing yards, but you also had Anna Varland here, who was 8 of 12 for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rushing-wise, Amy Turner was their second leading rusher. Their lead was Aaliyah McCoy with 66 yards and a rushing touchdown. Varland also had 31 rushing yards. And then receiving-wise, Sarah Safang continues her dominance here. 7 receptions, 73 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Aaliyah McCoy, 2 for 49 and a touchdown. Kate Rayburn, 2 for 26 and a touchdown. And then you have Isabella Fogetti here, 3 for 13 and a touchdown as the offense was popping off. Defensively, Aaliyah McCoy, once again, 10 flag pulls, 6 sacks here. She was definitely somebody I considered for playmaker of the game here, but I decided to go with Turner. But a great game from her nonetheless. And then Deborah Catalino had a sack as well. And then Neve Tilley had an interception as Roberts Wesleyan dominates this matchup against Geneseo once more. Then we have Ferrum versus Wingate, some big Conference Carolina play here. And I thought about doing a full game recap of this one, but honestly, it just did not feel super close here. Wingate actually goes ahead and upsets Ferrum 28-12, a 14-point first half here. Would be huge for Wingate as they held Ferrum to 0, and then they would not look back as they would get a couple more scores to go ahead and put this one away here. And I will say this, there were a couple times that I felt like Wingate could have separated a little bit better here and the game could have got more out of hand, but there were some turnovers. Let's go ahead and start with Wingate. Their playmaker of the game here, Yvonne Brussel, 3 receptions, 86 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns as their lead receiver, and then 5 sacks, doing it again on both sides of the football. Going back to the offensive side, though, Janelle Francis getting another start in place of Sailor Swanson here, who is indefinitely out with that broken hand injury. But Janelle Francis not playing too bad, though. 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, add on another 93 rushing yards, but did throw 3 interceptions, getting a little bit sloppy there at the end, but still coming out with a good enough win and producing a bunch through the air and on the ground. Looking at other rushing yards here, Addison Cadwell, 15 rushing yards, Brusso with 11 rushing yards. As far as receiving goes, obviously Brusso led with those 86 yards and 2 touchdowns, but Cadwell was right there, getting back on track here, 8 receptions, 75 yards, and a very nice touchdown at the end to go ahead and seal that game. You also had Haley, I think it's Bowie, 5 receptions, 29 yards. Kaylee Montavo had 2 receptions, 17 yards, and a touchdown, and then Kylie Watt had 10 yards. Addison Morgan, another 9 yards there, as offensively they continued to roll. Defensively, like I said, Brusso led the way with 5 sacks here. Also co-led in flag pulls with 8. Alana Placide had 8 flag pulls as well. Addison Morgan had an interception, and then Kylie Watt had a sack as Wingate getting a lot of production on both sides of the ball to win a key Conference Carolinas matchup. Ferrum, they had their opportunities, but unfortunately, just not enough as to get upset here. Payson Shreve, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick here, but definitely more struggles than the stat line shows. Got sacked 6 times. There were a number of drives where they just could not get anything as she was just holding on to the ball for a little bit too long there. Receiving wise, her check down option, Macy Taylor, led once more, 6 receptions, 108 yards. Brianna Kimmins had 4 receptions, 101 yards. yards. And then Samantha Pitzer, 5 for 53 and a touchdown. And Anastasia Rogers, 3 for 20 and a touchdown, as those are your lead receivers for Ferrum. Defensively, Pitzer, 9 flag poles and an interception. Deanna Mackey had 2 sacks in this one. And then you had interceptions as well as the Pitzer one from Anastasia Rogers, Skylar Keeve, and Dana Lynn Bonilla here for 4 total interceptions and then only 2 scores, really, which is tough for Ferrum. You can't do that. You can't win the turnover matchup and then just not be able to produce on offense. Granted, this Wingate defense was playing at a high level, but like I said, there are just times I felt like the receiving options were not on the same page with their quarterback, and Payson Shreve just kind of held on to the ball one too many times in this one. And, you know, this resulted in a tough loss, 28-12. This one is going to hurt Ferrum, while Wingate getting back into the first place conversations for sure here. Moving on to more Conference Carolinas play, we have Mount Olive playing Chowan here, and Mount Olive gets their second win ever, 42-13. Playmaker of the game is Jayliani Lucas, 161 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 63 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns for Mount Olive here. She was their lead passer. Yeah, it's Sandra Funderburk with 5 passing yards as well. And then was their second leading rusher, Funderburk, with 68 rushing yards to add on. She was also their lead receiver there with 6 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. Alvia Conticello had 3 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown. Zamara Rawls, 2 for 22. Aaliyah Cox, 4 for 20. And then Maya George, 3 for 11. On defense for Mount Olive, Zamara Rawls led with 9 flag poles here. You also had sacks from Kalia Brown and Alvia Conticello here, or either Alvia or Olivia Conticello. Excuse me if I am saying that wrong. It's probably Olivia, actually. So, sorry about that. Conticello also had an interception, and then you had interceptions as well from Riley Stanton, Brianna Barbie, 1 from Stanton, 2 from Barbie, which is absolutely huge. For Chowan, they continue to struggle here. Nevaeh Higdon, 27 of 28, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks here. Also 26 rushing yards as your lead passer and rusher. Receiving-wise, Adriana Lightfoot had 41 receiving yards. Kiara Lopez, 38 receiving yards and a touchdown. And Zian Haliger, I want to say, 4 receptions for 34 yards and a touchdown. Janiyah Perry also had 3 for 32. And Kiara Arguello with 5 for 18. Defensively, Janiyah Perry led with 12 flag poles. Dusabi Uera, I want to say, had a sack as well, but not enough production as Mount Olive wins another one. Moving on to March 26th here, we have D2 Post playing Villa Maria, and they will drop one to Villa Maria 27-0. Delia Kotseftis, 5 of 9 for 30 yards here. Their other quarterback had 4 pass attempts, but no completions there. Rushing-wise, Ania Booker, 50 rushing yards. Kotseftis, 21 rushing yards, and Acevedo Lopez, 10 rushing yards, and Hannah Solis, 8 rushing yards, but not too much going on there. Only 89 rushing yards, as they are mostly a running team. And then receiving-wise, only 2 players with receptions. Ania Booker, 3 for 21, and then Solis, 2 for 9 for a total of 30 receiving yards. Defensively, Chloe Wilson co-led with Rihanna Boland with 6 flag poles each, but no sacks, no picks from Post as they drop a tough one to Villa Maria 27-0. Mount Olive would go ahead and play Mount St. Mary's, the Battle of the Mount here, and Mount Olive would go ahead and get past Mount St. Mary's 13-7, a big one for Mount Olive here. Jayliani Lucas, 12 of 27, 90 yards, an interception there. Also had 55 rushing yards and a touchdown. Sandra Funderburk, 39 yards and a touchdown. Their lead receiver was Zamar Rawls, 3 for 32. Funderburk right behind her, though, with 3 for 15. And then defensively for Mount Olive, You had Jacayla Marshall, who had 5 flagpoles that led the team. Krishia McCoy had an interception. Aaliyah Cox had an a sack here, as well as Kalia Brown with a single sack. And then your playmaker of the game, at least I would say, is Evelise Martinez. And like I said, if I'm saying that wrong, please reach out to us. We want to make sure we say that name correctly next time. But Martinez with 3 sacks in this one as she disrupted that Mount St. Mary's defense. Offense, but for the Mount Olive defense. Mount St. Mary here, Jenna Dick was their leading passer with 107 passing yards. You also had Jordan Dodson Jensen with 18 passing yards, but did throw an interception there. Kiara Speaks had 34 rushing yards and a touchdown. Receiving wise, Jayana Goins here, 2 for 42. Alyssa Lane, 6 for 36, and Ariane Stokes, 3 for 26. As far as defense goes, Madison Keene led with 11 flagpoles, Morgan Gregory with an interception, and then Chloe Lover-Omar with 4 sacks here, but unfortunately could not make the most of it, as offensively, they just stalled way too many times here. Mount St. Mary's scored once in the first half, and then Mount Olive dominated the second half here, relatively 13-7, as that's a big conference win for Mount Olive. Moving on here, Chowan plays fellow Conference Carolinas team Emmanuel, and Emmanuel wins big 75-6 here. Lillian Stevenson, 27 of 34, 246 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions there. Also add on another 39 rushing yards. She is your playmaker of the game. Gwen Carter also had a passing touchdown and 31 yards, which is interesting there. Also add on another 30 yards and a touchdown for Carter, as well as 5 receptions for 35 yards and a touchdown. Their lead receiver was Gianna Brown, who's having a great season here. 7 receptions, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Desiree Keelis here, 4 for 51 and 2 touchdowns. And Elsie Baker, 4 for 41 and a touchdown. Carter, like I said, 35 and a touchdown. And then Sydney Stoker had 26 yards and a touchdown. Kaylin Robinson, 21 yards and a touchdown, as a lot of players got to eat for Emmanuel. Defensively, Kylie Warren-Young led with 8 flagpoles and an interception. Jamie Spivey, and hopefully I am saying that right, and if I'm not, please reach out. But she had 7 flagpoles and an interception, and then Kinsey Bishop with an interception as well, as Emmanuel gets a big win. For Chowan, like I said, continued to struggle here. Nevaeh Higdon, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, also 38 rushing yards. Lead receiver was Kiara Aguelo, 4 for 34. You also had Adriana Lightfoot, 10 for 32, and then Zian Haliger, 4 for 15 and a touchdown. The lead flag puller was Haliger with 11, and then Adriana Lightfoot and Maya James each had an interception, but not enough, as Emmanuel comes out on top. Purdue Northwest would then go ahead and play D3 Aurora, and they would drop a rough one here after taking an early 12-0 lead. Aurora goes on a 33-0 unanswered run here, which cannot have. And so a tough one for Purdue Northwest as they drop another one. Marilyn Merrick, 13-28, 109 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, was sacked 4 times here. Cheyenne Lipscomb, 27 rushing yards, Merrick another 12. Jocelyn Hale had a rushing touchdown and 10 yards here. Receiving-wise, Emma Anderlich, 7 for 53. Cherish Sanders, 2 for 38 and a touchdown. Alexis Wade, 2 for 9. But just not much going on there on offense after those first touchdowns. Defensively, obviously not a great showing after that first quarter. AZ Moore, 11 flagpoles. Cherish Sanders, 8 flagpoles, as well as Emma Anderlich with another 8 here. Sackwise, Sanders and Anderlich each had 1. Lipscomb had 2, but no turnovers forced, as Purdue Northwest started strong in this one, then dropped a tough one to Aurora, 12-33. Post would go ahead and play a game here versus Hartford here, and they would go ahead and beat them 18-0. 12-point second half would go ahead and seal that one for them. For Post, Kotsaftis, their quarterback Delia Kotsaftis, 12 yards, 1 pick. Nia Booker, 9 yards, 1 pick. Obviously, they don't really throw the ball a whole bunch, but they had 145 total rushing yards and 3 total rushing touchdowns. Nia Booker leading the way with 68 for 2 touchdowns. Kotsaftis, 40 for a touchdown. And Ana Osefdo Lopez with another 28 yards for Post here. Their lead receivers was Booker with 2 receptions for 12 yards. And then Coley Wilson, 1 for 8, and Cos Saftis, 1 for 1. And then defensively, Rihanna Boland, 6 flagpoles, 2 interceptions, which is huge. Booker, 3 flagpoles and a sack. Solis added on another sack. Your playmaker of the game is NAIA Booker, who led the team in rushing yards, 68, and rushing touchdowns with 2. And then also had a sack on defense as Post gets another win here. Moving on here, and by the way, a split day for Post, winning 1 and losing 1. Moving on here, Mount Olive then plays Emmanuel, and Emmanuel getting another big win, 70-0 over them. Your playmaker of the game from that one, I would have to say, would probably be Gwen Carter, who had another great game. 61 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 72 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns here as she played lights out on the offensive side of the football here. Going to your passing leader, though, it's Lillian Stevenson, 320 yards, 7 touchdowns, no picks, playing a very clean game there. Also had a rushing touchdown as well. Receiving-wise, Gianna Brown, 10 receptions, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, Carter in her 2. LZ Baker had 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sydney Stoker had a touchdown, and Lillian Stevenson actually caught a touchdown. And actually, I think your playmaker of the game, I'm going to change my mind on the spot here, has to be Lillian Stevenson. A passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in this one. Also 7 passing touchdowns. Got to be in consideration for playmaker of the week there. At least up to this moment right here. Demoye Flowers, 9 flagpoles and a sack here. That led the team in flagpoles. You also had interceptions from Kylie Warren-Young, Jamie Spivey, and Sydney Stoker. And then Kinsey Bishop also added a sack right there as well. For Mount Olive, Jayliani Lucas, 78 yards, 2 picks. That was your lead passer. Maya George, 42 rushing yards. Lucas with another 36. Receiving-wise, Zamara Rawls, 2 for 24. Maya George, 4 for 23. Leah Cox, 5 for 18. Funderburk, 5 for 16. But really not much going on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively as well, not too much going on there. Brianna Barbie and Olivia Conticello, 8 flagpoles each, but no sacks, no interceptions, as Mount Olive loses to Emmanuel, who looks red hot here, 70-0. Nevada State would then go ahead and play Ottawa, Arizona, OUAZ here, and they would get another dominant 40-0 win. Your playmaker of the game is Kaylee Phillips, their quarterback, 246 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 67 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. Did throw a pick there, but plenty of touchdowns to go around. Receiving-wise, Courtney Funk, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. Layla Randolph, 43 and 2 touchdowns. Soraya Tafua, 40 and a touchdown there for Nevada State, as those are your lead receivers. Defensively, Tatiana Buno here, 3 flagpoles, co-led with Miranda Dooley actually with 3. Buno here had a sack. Dooley had 1.5 sacks and an interception here. Courtney Funk added 1.5 sacks. Soraya Tafua added another sack here. Anaya, I think it's IE here, or Lee, 2 interceptions, and then Brooklyn Hill adds another interception as Nevada State continues to dominate the West Coast. Moving on here, Lise McRae would go ahead and play Milligan, and they would actually play them really close, almost upsetting them here. It came down to the 4th quarter, but unfortunately, it was a conversion that it came down to. Milligan just barely beats Lise McRae 13-12. That would have been a big one for Lise McRae here. Looking at their stats, Mackenzie Hicks, 206 yards and a touchdown. Ava Rivera also had a 26-yard passing touchdown there as well. Receiving-wise, Ashley Alvarado led with 10 receptions for 99 yards. Kennedy Van Noy, 8 for 43. Tammy Chatwood, 3 for 39 and a touchdown. And then Natalia Hernandez de Leon, continuing her touchdown streak here, 5 for 37 and a touchdown. Defensively for them, Kennedy Van Noy and Sofia Antui Silva led with 5 flagpoles each. Mackenzie Walker had a sack and an interception, but unfortunately, just not quite enough to beat Milligan. Defensively, they played great. They held Milligan to a very low number of yards and points, which not many teams are able to do, but unfortunately for Lise McRae, just could not get enough offense there going as they fall by 1 to a very good Milligan team. Moving on to March 27th here, that is Monday. Wingate taking their shot at Milligan and unfortunately falling short of that shot here as they go ahead and they lose to Milligan in a tough one, 26-7 here. Let's go ahead and look at the stats for them. Janelle Francis, 66 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Only 13 of 24, though. Not very efficient over the air. Did have 90 rushing yards, but that was on 21 attempts. So that wasn't very efficient either. Tough going there. Receiving-wise, Von Brussel led 5 for 31, but then her second leading receiver is Addison Morgan, 2 for 14 here. Addison Cadwell did score a touchdown, their only touchdown of the game. But she had 4 receptions for 5 yards here as the offense just really struggled to get going against the stout Milligan defense here. And then defensively for Wingate, Von Brussel adds on another 2 sacks. I'm pretty sure she's the sack leader in the country again for the second straight year. Alana Placide adds an interception. And then Addison Cadwell also had 5 flag pulls up, as 3 players for Wingate had 5 pulls for them, tri-leading for them, if you will. But just not enough as Wingate falls to Milligan here. Not the worst, 26-7, but like I said, just a lot of missed opportunities on offense, unfortunately, for them. Warner would go ahead and play Alabama State, and they would beat Alabama State by a whole bunch of points, 89-7. Let's look at the stats real quick here. Aubrey Davis, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Sade Baker with 20 rushing yards as your lead rusher. Their lead receiver was Jasmine Dunn, 10 for 72. Sierra Wine, 1 30-yard touchdown, but that is basically it. Kiana Westerland, only 4 receptions, 24 yards there, which is tough. As far as defense goes, Sky Dabney here led with 6 flag pulls to Leah Brown with 1 sack here, but not enough as they go ahead and fall to the powerhouse that is number 1 currently in the country, Warner. Wingate will then go ahead and play Mars Hill here and take care of them 32-6 to go 2-1 on the week here. A 25-point second half would go ahead and allow them to separate from Mars Hill. Let's go ahead and look at the stats that we have from this game. Janelle Francis, 10 or 12 for 21, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks here. Haley Bowie went in 10 of 12, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Not too bad. So maybe something to look out for right there. But we'll see. Janelle Francis still led with 42 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Receiving-wise, Addison Cadwell, a big day here. 10 receptions, 108 yards, 3 touchdowns. Von Brussel, 5 for 93 and a touchdown there. Sarah Lebowitz, 2 for 23. Francis had a 15-yard reception, and then Bowie 2 for 13 for them. Defensively for Wingate, Sophie Matthews led with 8 flag pulls and 2 pass breakups. Brussel with another punishing game here. 5 sacks in this one. Kylie Watt also added an interception as well as a lot of Placide as Wingate takes care of business in this one, 32-6. Now, there is more Conference Carolina play here. There is a great game between Barton and Emmanuel, 2 teams who are pretty hot going into that matchup. But look out for after this segment. That is when I will make sure to cover that. And the last game from Friday would actually be Barton versus Mount St. Mary's here. And they would go ahead and take care of them 20-6. Mount St. Mary's would score in the second quarter here. And actually at half it would be 7-6. But Barton would go ahead and pull away with the 13-point second half here. Looking at Barton here, Valerie Angebada went ahead and started most of the snaps at quarterback. 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Sawyer Rigdon, I don't know what's going on there, but only 1 pass attempt for 7 yards here. Bada added on another 25 rushing yards. Sarah Merritt, 12 receptions, 133 yards. Zanaya Long, 7 for 79. Aomi Basa had a receiving touchdown in this one, as they had 3 touchdowns here on offense. I almost didn't see the Sydney Dash as well as Lila Nathanson also got rushing touchdowns for Barton, as they did just enough to get by Mount St. Mary's. Defensively, NAIA Long and Jacayla Robinson led with 5 flag poles each. Robinson with a sack as well. And then Valerie Anjabata with 2 interceptions. That is your playmaker of the game. She has been on a tear lately, showing she is one of the best freshmen and really one of the best flag football players in the entire country. So, there you go. For Mount St. Mary, Jenna Dick, 98 passing yards, that's your lead passer, and an interception. Jordan Dodson-Jensen, 19 yards and a pick there. Jenna Dick had 59 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. And then receiving-wise, Alyssa Lane, 4 for 52. Annabelle Hott, 7 for 39. And then Gianna Goins here, 2 for 10. And Kiara Speaks, 2 for 9. Defensively, Speaks led with 11 flagpoles and a sack. Chloe Lover-Omar had 2 sacks, and then Annabelle Hott here had an interception. And by the way, if I'm saying those wrong, I know every week we are not every week, but every other week we are rotating coverage. Make sure to reach out and just give us a gentle reminder, and I appreciate that. But Barton, they go ahead and beat Mount St. Mary's 20-6. Moving on here, let's go to Saturday, March 28th. Lisa McRae, they go ahead and play Mars Hill. I believe this is actually their first home game on the field for Lisa McRae, and they go ahead and start this one out with a bang, 73-6 here. This one was just not close at all. Mackenzie Hicks with a great day, 323 yards, 9 passing touchdowns. Ava Rivera even got in there, 2 for 25 yards and a passing touchdown. Tammy Chatwood, 25 rushing yards. That's your lead rusher. Lead receiver is Natalia Hernandez de Leon. A great home opener for her. 6 receptions, 87 yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Rivera, 5 receptions, 72 yards. Kennedy Van Noy, 4 for 64 and 3 touchdowns. Ashley Alvarado, 6 for 61 and 3 touchdowns. I want to say, outside of Warner, they become the first team to have 3 players to have 3 receiving touchdowns each, which is crazy. Joliet Lampton, by the way, another touchdown to add on to that. Defensively, Mackenzie Walker led with 8 flagpoles here. Van Noy had an interception. Jaden Jalbert had an interception. Sophia Antui Silva, as well as Tammy Chatwood, each had a sack as they go ahead and dominate Mars Hill in their home opener. For Mars Hill, they were just simply outmatched. Cecilia Hale, 14 of 43, 142 yards, 2 picks here. 1 rushing touchdown, but 6 attempts, only 9 yards there. Receiving-wise, Saga Carlson Roa had a good game, 8 receptions, 119 yards here. Mary Lou Suni, though, was contained for the most part, 5 for 22. Then Isabella Gray, 1 reception. Only 3 receivers getting a reception in this one. Isabella Gray did lead in flagpoles with 10. Amani Serta had 9 flagpoles right behind her as well. But no sacks, no interceptions, as Lisa McRae with a big win, 73-6 over Mars Hill. Moving on, Lisa McRae would go ahead and play Mount St. Mary's, and they would go ahead and take care of Mount St. Mary's, 42-0 in this one. Mackenzie Hicks, 213 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. Add on another 25 rushing yards there. Receiving-wise, Natalia Hernandez de Leon, 6 receptions, 95 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ava Rivera, 4 for 48 and a touchdown. Ashley Alvarado, 4 for 33 and a touchdown, as those are your receiving leaders. Defensively, Mackenzie Walker, once again, your lead flag puller, 8 flagpoles again and a sack. Sophia Antui Silva, as well as Tammy Chatwood, each had a sack. And then Kennedy Van Noy with an interception, and Sydney Stigler with an interception as well. For Mount St. Mary's, Jenna Dick, 12 for 22, 103 yards, and 2 interceptions. Jordan Dodson-Jensen, who is pretty much splitting reps with Jenna Dick at this point for Mount St. Mary's, 87 passing yards, no touchdowns, no picks there. Did take 3 sacks, but 34 rushing yards. And then receiving-wise, Alyssa Lane, 8 receptions, 70 yards. Annabelle Hott, 6 for 46. Morgan Gregory, 3 for 35. Ariane Stokes, 3 for 25. And Gianna Goins here, 3 for 14. Defensively, Madison Keene and Annabelle Hott co-led with 4 flagpoles each. Annabelle Hott having an interception, but really not much more going for Mount St. Mary's, as Lisa McRae wins 42-0. Oh, and before I forget, I don't know if I said playmaker of the game here for those 2 games, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Natalia Hernandez de Leon for those 2 games that Lise McGray won. 6 touchdowns on 12 receptions in total from both of those games. So there you go there. But let's go ahead and move on here. Let's talk about Mount St. Mary's, this time playing Mars Hill, where they would go ahead and win pretty easily here, 51-13. Jordan Dodson Jensen, 9 of 12, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, Jenna Dick, 11 of 17, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Then Annabelle Hott actually got in there, 39 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is interesting. Speaks had a rushing touchdown. You had Goins here with 6 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Annabelle Hott, 9 for 58 and 3 touchdowns. And then you had Alyssa Lane, 4 for 52 and a touchdown, as a lot of players got to eat in this one. Interception-wise, Annabelle Hott, 2 interceptions. Gregory had an interception. Keene had an interception as well. And then their lead flag puller here was Lover Omar here with 8 flag pulls, 4 sacks. You also had interceptions from, well, I already said those. So there you go there, as Mount St. Mary's wins big here, and I would have to say your playmaker of the game has to be Annabelle Hott, who was just all over the place. 2 passing touchdowns, 39 yards, 58 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, 2 interceptions. She was on fire against Mars Hill. For Mars Hill, Cecilia Hale, 18 of 33, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks here. Amani Serta also had a pass attempt, but it was picked off here. Hale had another 27 yards, but on 15 attempts there. And then receiving-wise, Mary Lou Sooney got back on track here. 7 receptions, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns for them. And that was your lead receiver there. Isabella Gray also had 7 receptions for 56 yards as well. Mary Lou Sooney also had an interception. And then defensively for them, Saga Carlson Roa had 9 flag pulls. That led the team there. But not too much going on, as Mount St. Mary's tags on another win over Mars Hill. Moving on, Weber would go ahead and play Alabama State. And this game would be a lot closer than that Warner game, but they would still lose 19-0 for Alabama State. Christian Wright, 8 of 16, 34 yards here. Aubrey Davis had 9 attempts, but only completed 2 and threw an interception. Wright added on another 17 yards. Toy Weaver, 2 for 23 here. But not many, I don't think anybody else had over 10 receiving yards, so there you go. Defensively, Shelby Schaefer here, 9 flag pulls and a sack and an interception. Kamara, hopefully I'm saying that, Kamara Crawford, 3.5 sacks here. Talia Brown, 2 sacks. Alyssa Woods, an interception. But just not much going on for them. Kyoto Westerland did not play in this game either, so interesting for sure, but they dropped that one. Nevada State would then go ahead and play Benedictine Mesa, and they would win once more, 44-0. Moving on to Sunday, we have 3 games here. King would go ahead and play Mount St. Mary's, and they would get their first win in program history. Great for them. 35-6 in this one. Their playmaker of the game has to be, and I don't say this much, but it does have to be their whole defense, who just played lights out here. 6 interceptions, 4 sacks, and a dominating performance. Let's go ahead and look at those stats, though, for King on defense. But just a complete team effort. Nigel Arnold, 2 sacks here. Alyssa Ramos had a sack. Chastity Mandley had a sack. And then interception-wise, Jocelyn Koloski here, 2 interceptions. Caroline Small, an interception. Alyssa Ramos, an interception. Addison Holly, Faith Carter, each had interceptions. And then Nigel Arnold, like I said, led with 11 flag pulls, as the defense just played lights out. And then offensively, they took advantage of that. Samantha Lee with an efficient game, 21 of 39, 196 yards, 3 touchdowns, no sacks taken. Also add on another 46 rushing yards there. Receiving-wise, Alyssa Ramos, 9 receptions, 73 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Jocelyn Koloski here, 6'4", 61, and then Haley Mescal, 3 receptions, 14 yards, and a touchdown. Molly Turner also adding on another touchdown on offense. Defensively for Mount St. Mary, it was Jordan Dodson Jensen who led in passing, 10 of 31, 54 yards, 1 touchdown, 5 picks though. Jenna Dick only 4 pass attempts here, but did throw an interception when she got in. Dodson Jensen also led in rushing yards with 43, Kiara Speaks with 30, and then Alyssa Lane with 21. Receiving wise, Annabelle Hott 3 for 28 and a receiving touchdown, but nobody else caught a touchdown or got over 15 receiving yards, so there's that. And then defensively, Madison Keene, 9 flag pulls and interception, as she led the team in flag pulls, but no other turnovers or sacks for Mount St. Mary's as they fall in a tough one, 35-6 to King. That would not end there. They would also play Ferrum and would lose to them 61-0. The box score is, I don't know, it's only showing the first half where they're already up 28-0. So I guess I'll go over those stats there. Payson Shreve, playmaker of the game, 216 yards, 3 touchdowns, 21 rushing yards for them here. On the ground, though, they were able to run it pretty well. Deanna Mackey, 137-yard touchdown. Macy Taylor, 2 for 22. And then, like I said, Shreve with their 21 yards there. Receiving-wise, Macy Taylor, 4 for 33 and a touchdown. Jaden Hires, 3 for 33 and a touchdown. And then Samantha Pitzer, 3 for 31 and a touchdown for them. For Ferrum here on defense, it was Malaya Lotima Tonga, 6 flag pulls that led the team, and then Gracious Wise and Danilyn Bonilla with a sack each, and then Macy Taylor, that's not an interception, never mind. So there you go, Ferrum, they go ahead and take care of Mount St. Mary's there. For Mount St. Mary's, just nothing going for them. 3 of 6 for Jordan Dodson Jensen for 17 yards. Alyssa Lane, 2 for 28 on the ground. And then nobody caught more than 1 reception. Alyssa Lane and Keene leading with 1 reception for 8 yards each in the first half. So a tough go for Mount St. Mary's as Ferrum gets another win here, 28-0. Or at least at half, that was the score. Moving on, Ferrum would also play King here, and they would beat them 58-24 here. In control for most of this game. They're up like 33-12 at half. Let's go ahead and look at their offense here. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Playmaker of the game, I want to say, has to be Payson Shreve again. 379 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception thrown, but made it up with 49 rushing yards and another 3 rushing touchdowns. Shreve was the leading passer and rusher, but right behind her was Macy Taylor with 21, and then Brianna Kimmins had a rushing touchdown as well. Receiving-wise, Jaden Hires, 7 receptions for 120 yards and a receiving touchdown. Macy Taylor, 8 receptions, 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Brianna Kimmins, 9 for 45 and a touchdown for them. Defensively, it was Malaya Lotima Tonga once again, leading with 12 flag pulls and 4 pass breakups. You had Bonilla with a sack, you had Wise with a sack, and then you had Samantha Pitzer with another 2 interceptions to add on. For King here, Samantha Lee still productive, 36 of 61, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, but did throw 2 picks and took 2 sacks. Did have 90 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, though. Receiving-wise, Jade Salvador, 8 for 97 and a touchdown. Alyssa Ramos, 11 for 77 and a touchdown. And Haley Mescal, 9 for 65 yards here. Molly Turner also caught a 25-yard touchdown, which is worth noting. And then defensively, Alyssa Ramos, 15 flag pulls and an interception. Crazy, by the way. But no other sacks or interceptions for King, as Ferrum dominates this one, 58-24. That'll go ahead and wrap up your Week 7 D1, D2 recap. Alrighty, we got a good one from March 27th. We have Conference Carolinas play. We have Barton facing off with Emmanuel. Barton 6-1, swag surfing into this game, hosting Emmanuel, who sits at 9-5, having an up and down season, but currently catching some fire as they hit conference play here. Now, this is a great matchup here. I will say this before I go into it. I got to shout out Barton in North Carolina, man. Just being honest, I did not know how good they would be at flag football. I know they've had a pilot for the last couple years here, but they are excellent over there. It is insane to me that they have like over 100 high school programs and have not sanctioned it. So hopefully here soon, I know it's up for a vote here in the spring, I believe, but North Carolina will sanction flag football, as this Barton College team made up of, I think, almost all North Carolina players have shown throughout this year. And so I'm excited to see more North Carolina football here in the future representing on the women's college flag football level. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the game starting here in the first quarter. Emmanuel will take over. Lillian Stevenson at quarterback. She takes her shot down the left sideline to start the game, and Gianna Brown in one-on-one bodies up the smaller corner and makes a contested catch for a massive gain here. It's now 1st and 20 across midfield as they flip the field just like that. First down here, Stevenson looking to be aggressive, throws the comeback route here to Brown again to make it a 2nd and 15 here. 2nd and 15, Stevenson throws the corner out to Elsie Baker, and she finds a soft spot in the defense. A good throw by Stevenson and good recognition in pre-snap here to go ahead and complete this pass to make it 1st and 10 in the red zone. Emmanuel marching down the field led by Lillian Stevenson here. She goes ahead and throws it again, stepping up in the pocket and lofting a jump ball to Gianna Brown, who's one-on-one and wins the one-on-one with yet another contested catch, this time for the touchdown as Emmanuel scores off rip to make it 6-0, just like that. PAT is unfortunately dropped, but Emmanuel will take that lead. 13-24 when Barton takes over. Sora Rigdon in at quarterback. They start, though, with a jet sweep left to Valerie Inchbada here for a decent gain, but a holding penalty will bring that back. So now it'll be 1st and 17 approaching midfield. Still got the first down, but 1st and 17 approaching midfield. Sorry, holding would not take that back. It would actually be added on. So there you go. First down here, Rigdon going vertical downfield, throws down the right sideline, but it looks like there's a miscommunication. Two receivers end up in kind of the same spot here, and so that ends up being incomplete. Second down here, Rigdon throws a deep out here to Bada, who brings in a contested catch on the 14-yard gain. Third down here, it's a check down, but it is dropped here. Actually tipped up and then intercepted off the tip by Kylie Warren-Young. Sloppy play by the Barton receivers to start this one as Emmanuel with a chance to go up 2 scores. 1st and 20 just past midfield for Emmanuel. 11 minutes left in the first quarter. Stevenson throws a curl to Brown, who physically boxes out the corner for the 6-yard gain. Second down here, Stevenson throws a drag to Gwen Carter, who makes a move upfield and gets a solid 6 yards here. Then on 3rd and 8, it looks like they run a bootleg here. It pretty much goes nowhere. Stevenson is forced to check it down after they take away some options downfield and bring some pressure. So now 4th and 12, looking to convert to get into the red zone. Stevenson throws a decent ball on the corner route, but the receiver is just not able to track this one down. I think it actually hits her hands and she drops it. So turnover on downs. Barton with the 1st and 8, 9:20 left here approaching midfield. First down here, they barely get by as Rigdon finds Bada over the middle to make it 2nd and 1. Following that, they go ahead and run a jet sweep here to Sarah Merritt. With her first touch of the game, she goes right, slips past the defender, and makes it 1st and 12 past midfield. A great way to get her involved early in this game. First down here, Rigdon goes deep to Bada, but it is well covered by Emmanuel and incomplete. Second down, Rigdon rolls right, and then she decides to just take the scrambling yards here after no one's open, but there is a legal contact thrown against the offense, so now it's 2nd and 17. Second down again here, Rigdon launches one deep, but yet another miscommunication with receivers in the same area here, and so nobody's able to bring it in. Incomplete there. Third down, it's a drag to Bada, who tries to dip past the defender, but her knee hits the ground instead, so she's just down. That goes for 2 yards. 4th and 15, obviously they're going for it past midfield. Here's what happens. Rigdon steps up, throws the crosser over the middle to Bada, but the DB gets in there for a physical pass breakup. But the refs call, in my opinion, a little bit of a questionable penalty here. Replayed it a couple of times on my end. She was not early. It looks like she's going for the ball here, but it is a physical penalty. In the moment, the refs, they decide to call that, which is interesting. So now it's an automatic first down here. PAT PI on that one. 1st and 4 on the edge of the red zone. Here's what happens. Rigdon goes ahead and throws a hitch out left to NAIA Long, her first catch of the day. She brings it in. It's now 1st and 15 in the red zone. First red zone trip here for Barton. Here's what happens. Rigdon rolls right, throws it deep, but incomplete. 2nd down, Rigdon throws it into the flats. Well, this one's almost picked off here for a pick 6 by Jamie Spivey, I want to say. But luckily for them, it is dropped. So that brings up a 3rd down here. 3rd down, Rigdon throws the drag to Bada. Gets a decent gain, but still way short of the touchdown here, the red zone, end zone. So it's now 4th and 9. 4th down here, Rigdon gets a snap, looks off the defender before coming back over the middle, throws it into the late window, but this one is in triple coverage and knocked away here. Even then, almost completed. I think if she got back to this read maybe a half second earlier, this would be complete, but just a little late to this one. A little late on a couple throws here, as unfortunately Barton does not get the score. Emmanuel, though, they take over with 3:51 left, 1st and 11, but they struggle here. Couple drops to start. It's now 3rd down here. Stevenson decides to go left here on the corner route, but Barton reads this one well. NAIA Long fields this one because this was thrown, I think, in at least double coverage, and so that's an easy interception. Barton takes over in the red zone, 1st and 19 with just about 2 minutes left. 1st down here, Rigdon throws it late on the dig again, and this one is intercepted by Kylie Warren-Young, who juggles the ball just a little bit, almost drops it, but brings it in here. So just like that, Emmanuel and Barton trade turnovers. So after trading turnovers, it's now 1st and 1 here for Emmanuel. About a minute left in the first quarter. Stevenson throws the hitch route to Brown. That goes for a 1st and 16. Following that, Stevenson holding the ball on here for a little bit long, makes a late decision, throws it deep down the left sideline, but this one's out of bounds. There's a little bit of, to me, it looks like incidental contact, though. The refs surprisingly throw, though, a PI penalty on this one. And to me, this just looks like a makeup call. So now it's 1st and 6 approaching midfield. 1st down here, Stevenson rolls out right, dumps it off to Shane Cooper-Riley, who gets another 1st down in a row here. It's now 1st and 17. Before the quarter ends, Stevenson takes a shot down the right sideline, but it's well played by the Barton defense, who gets a couple players over there, and it is incomplete. So that is where we start here in the second quarter, 2nd and 17. Emmanuel marching downfield, looking to go up 2 scores past midfield at this point. Here's what happens. Stevenson checks it down to Elsie Baker. She makes it 3rd and 4. Barton then sends on that play, they sent 2 across the board here, leaving Baker open, and she burns them there. So good play by Stevenson. 3rd and 4 here. Stevenson lofts one left deep to Brown, who's alone in 1-on-1, and the ball is hanging in the air for a while as Gianna Brown basically has time to post up, and she mosses the defender, bringing in a physical catch over the corner, stepping over her into the end zone. This is as good as it gets for Gianna Brown, who's a very tall receiver, and she makes another physical play to make Emmanuel go up by 2 scores early on Barton here, as Barton is now in upset alert territory. Emmanuel decides to go for 2 here. Here's what happens. Stevenson buys time before launching one into the end zone, but this one is incomplete. So here we go. Emmanuel up 12-0. Barton needing to get on track here. 14:33 left in the second quarter. Here's what happens. Rigdon finds Bada. She goes ahead and gets about 3 on this one. Following that, she throws it to Merritt on the quick hitch. She gives them their first down. It's now 1st and 16. On 1st and 16, Rigdon rolls right, throws it deep, but it's a great deflection by Spivey here, who plays this one great in man-to-man. 2nd down here, Rigdon extends the play, buying a lot of time here, tries to bait the defender down to stop her from running. She does. She throws it, but this one's incomplete, though. A tough missed opportunity as the receiver was wide open. 3rd down here, Rigdon gets to her last read here, once again holding onto the ball, and finds Bada, who makes an excellent all-hands toe tap catch near the sideline, but is just short of the 1st down. It is a very manageable 4th and 1, though. On 4th and 1, Rigdon checks it down to Bada, and they get across midfield just like that, 1st and 17. Following that play, Rigdon gets the snap, steps left, and finds Zania Long here on the dig route. That will go ahead and put them in the red zone just like that, 1st and 19 on some big plays through the air. First down in the red zone. Sawyer Rigdon with the snap goes deep, puts it in front of Long, and she catches it, making the diving catch. Sensational, not even bad defense, just a great play by Long here to go ahead and pull Barton within 6 points, 12-6. On the PAT here, Rigdon gets a snap here, pump fakes it, gets the defender to jump in the air, and then walks it in to make it 12-7. Barton back in business, but Emmanuel not going away. 10:33 left. They get the ball here. Stevenson with the ball scrambles for a decent gain, gets about 5. After a dropped check down throw here on 3rd down, Stevenson goes deep, but once again the safety plays this one well here and picks this one, or almost picks this one off. Deja Reed deflects it, so they have to go 3 and out. Emmanuel decides to punt it here, obviously in their first quadrant, and so they do that. Zania Long fields it, makes one cut, and then is gone down the right sideline, makes the last player miss as she goes to the house as Barton takes the lead for the first time today. 13-12. Sensational plays made here by Zania Long here as Barton goes out in front. On the PAT, Rigdon throws this one, and it completes it, but she does pass the line of scrimmage when that happens. So it stays at 13-12, but Barton with all the momentum here. Emmanuel trying to stop the bleeding. With 8:31 left here in the second quarter, Stevenson checks it down to Shane Cooper-Riley, who gets about 3. Following that, Stevenson gets a snap, goes deep down the left sideline to Brown, but Barton was waiting for this one, and they bring in a couple more defenders as Bada picks this one off, getting a nice return, putting this one into the red zone here, as looks like Barton was waiting for that to happen again, and they make her pay for that decision. 1st and 12 here, Barton is rolling, they're in the red zone, 7:42 left. First down, it's a dropped handoff, so I don't think they go back any yards, so that's good. 2nd and 12 here. Rigdon with the snap extends the play, looking for an open receiver, finds one, but it's just a little bit too high and incomplete, so that brings up 3rd down. 3rd down here, though, Rigdon finds Reed on the quick slant to make it 4th and 4 as they get something here. Gets a decent 8 yards, but they want to score here to extend this lead. 4th and 4, they basically run all hitches with their receivers, and Barton and Sawyer Rigdon finds Sarah Merritt, who goes ahead and brings this one in to make it 19-12 as Barton 3 straight touchdowns here in the second quarter to get into this game and really take control of this game. But on the PAT, Gwen Carter gets a big-time deflection to keep it at a 7-point game. Emmanuel, 6:07 left, reeling just a little bit, looking to get something here. Here's how it starts. Stevenson checks it down to Sydney Stoker, who gets a nice gain after the catch to go ahead and bring them near midfield. 1st and 9 here. After an incompletion on 1st down, 2nd down, Angie Lara of Barton gets some pretty good pressure on Stevenson here and gets a big-time sack. So that goes ahead and pushes them way back now. It's now 3rd and 24 here. 3rd down here, Stevenson rolls right, finds an open Gwen Carter on the curl, who slips the defender and then gets all those yards back here before finally being taken down here. Very manageable 4th and 5 near midfield. But Emmanuel decides to go conservative here, and they punt this one, not wanting to give Barton any field positioning here. And so Barton, with 3:24 left, take over with 1st and 18 approaching midfield. 1st down here, Rigdon scrambles right to go ahead and get 2 yards. Following that, she throws a drag route here to Merritt, who slips the first defender again and then gets a good gain, making it 1st and 16 past midfield. 1st down here, past midfield, Rigdon, kind of indecisive, throws it into the direction of 2 receivers, and this one is picked off, but I don't think the defender was able to get a foot down inbound, so for now, it is a 2nd down here. 2nd down here, Rigdon throws the curl left to Aolani Bassa to go ahead and make it 3rd and 7. 3rd down and 7 here. Sawyer Rigdon with the snap. Zips one to Reed on the curl. She goes ahead and gets some nice yards here to make it 1st and 18 in the red zone. 1st and 18, looking to get another touchdown here, their 4th straight here. Rigdon throws the drag to Long, who gets a decent gain, gets about 5. They then call a timeout with about 46 seconds left here in the half. 2nd and 13, Rigdon with the snap, rolls right, throws it on the run, but misses an open receiver. This one overthrown, so now it's 3rd down. 3rd down, she goes back to the drag here, this time to Sarah Merritt here, who is dangerous. She makes the catch here, tries to make something happen, but goes nowhere. So now it's 4th down, about 4th and 11 here. They do call a timeout with 31 seconds left. And then after the timeout, here's what happens. So 4th and 11, Rigdon with the snap. Under pressure, forced to throw the drag to Merritt once more, who tries to make a player miss, but is just not quite able to slip her this time, and is just maybe a yard or 2 short of scoring. So that's a turnover on downs. Emmanuel basically needs this one out with the last 15 seconds as it stays right here at 19-12. Emmanuel swinging first to take the 12-0 lead, but Barton dominating the second quarter and getting all the momentum, up 19-12, but only up by 7 points here as we go into the second half. 3rd quarter, Barton does get the ball, looking to go up by 2 scores. Here's what happens. Rigdon finds Bada settling in between zones for a long gain to go ahead and make it 1st and 8, approaching midfield. 1st down here, Rigdon with time again. Not much of a pass rush here. Throws one to Bada. She's well covered, but this one is almost picked off by Spivey. Fortunate for them, once again, it is dropped. 2nd down here, trying to go with a hurry-up offense. Rigdon finds Boss on the slant. She makes it 1st and 19 past midfield. Following that here, 1st down, Rigdon gets a snap. It looks like all hitches, and then all the receivers decide to go ahead and find some open space once they realize that it is well covered, and Rigdon improvises and finds a receiver in Reed, who makes it a nice 13-yard gain. 2nd down here, it's a toss left to Reed, but this one just goes nowhere as Emmanuel was ready for that one. 3rd down here for Barton. Rigdon throws one deep, but this one's well covered again, and so it's incomplete. So now it brings up 4th down. 4th down as this drive is stalling a little bit here, trying to get into the red zone. Rigdon with the snap just makes a poor decision, throwing this one into double coverage really late. And so that will be a turnover on downs here. I kind of feel like Barton wished they got that toss play back, because that one just really didn't go anywhere. And so Emmanuel with a good stop here, feeling some momentum coming back. It's 1st and 15 as they approach midfield with 11:30 left. Here, Stevenson with the step finds Carter on the curl, who slips a pull and gets out there for a nice gain, making it 1st and 20 past midfield. Following an incompletion, they go ahead and check it down to Cooper Riley. She gets maybe 4 though. 3rd and 16, Stevenson throws the flat route to Carter, who tries to reverse field, spins out of the pole, but good defense by Barton as they only allow her to get 2 yards here, forcing a 4th and 14. Emmanuel on the other side of the field obviously decides to go for it here. They go ahead and roll Stevenson out left, who finds Elsie Baker on the quick hitter, who is just uncovered by Barton. And by the time she's brought down, it's a 1st and 16 in the red zone. A tough miscommunication right there. Emmanuel in the red zone looking to take control of this game. Stevenson, though, on 1st down, throws it away to maintain field positioning and not take the sack. 2nd down here, Stevenson just taking a little bit too long to make a decision. Almost sacked again, but this time able to throw it away. So 2 throwaways to start here. They need to get something here on 3rd. 3rd down, Stevenson drops back, and this time just lets it go downfield to Gwen Carter on the wheel route, who gets the leverage on her defender and brings it in. A touchdown here for Emmanuel. 19-18 is the score. A beautiful route ran by Gwen Carter, who just gets that inside leverage, and it's not even bad defense. The corner step for her, but Carter using her body shields the ball away from her and brings in a tough one as she bumps the defender out of the way here as the safety came in just a little bit late on this one to go ahead and make it 19-18. A great throw and decision by Stevenson, and an even better catch here, even through the contact, by Gwen Carter. On the PAT here, Stevenson throws the drag route back to Carter, and it's a little bit low. Carter has to dive for this one. It looks like she brings it in here. She's wrestling for the ball with the Barton defender who's right there, but the refs do say that it hits the ground. I honestly don't know. From my angle, it's a tough call here. So for now, Barton maintains the lead 19-18, but Emmanuel definitely knocking on that door. So here we go, 7:21 for Barton. Sawyer Rigdon and company looking to extend the lead. Rigdon decides to do it by doing what she does best, and that's throwing this one deep, and I mean deep to Bada on the post route here, just splitting those safeties, and that gives them a 1st and 19 past midfield as they basically flip the field to start this drive. First down here, Rigdon with the snap. Tries to sidestep here, it looks like, but she just loses her footing and falls to the ground. So she's down, and it's now 2nd and 26. 2nd down, 26 here. Rigdon trying to get that back. Goes ahead, gets a snap, sidesteps, keeps her footing, goes deep. It's 1v1 to Bada, I think. But Spivey is step for step, and she makes the contested interception. This is just great defense by Spivey of Emmanuel here. Playing this one great in 1v1, and then being aggressive getting this ball. So now Emmanuel has a chance to potentially retake the lead. It's now 1st and 5 here, and I believe 1st and 1 with 5 minutes left. After a drop on 1st down, Stevenson rolls right, finds Gianna Brown on the drag. That now makes it 1st and 15. 1st and 15, Stevenson tries to scramble, but Alexa Whedon makes a nice pull here that goes for no gain. 2nd down here, Stevenson throws the quick drag to Brown that goes for 4. She then checks it down to Kaylin Robinson, who gets a decent gain but is short of the 1st down. 4th and 1 here. On 4th down, Stevenson just goes ahead and takes off here for the 1st down. It looks like she almost gets there, but is stopped short here. So that's a quick turnover on downs here as Barton doesn't allow them to score off the turnover. So it is now 1st and 19 with 1:52 left, just past midfield. On this 1st down play of the drive, Sawyer Rigdon with the time rolls right, tries to scramble but is stopped for no gain. After an incompletion on 2nd and 3rd down here, Rigdon finds Bada on the deep dig, and that's good for a 1st and 19 in the red zone. Following one more play here in the 3rd quarter, it's a drop pass, so that brings us to the 4th quarter where it's 2nd and 19 still in the red zone. Sawyer Rigdon and company looking to go ahead and extend this lead. Rigdon launches one deep, but it is well covered and incomplete. On 3rd down here, Rigdon with the snap here lofts another deep ball, but this one's laid again into double coverage, so it's knocked away, bring up 4th down. They go ahead and call a timeout with 13:29 left here. Barton wanting to figure out what to do, and then this is what happens on 4th down. Rigdon with the snap waits until the very last second and throws it, tries to sell the contact as the rushers were bearing down on her, but that's not called, and she goes ahead and throws it, and it is easily intercepted by Gianna Brown here as it was triple coverage, and so that ends this drive. And so here we go. Only down by 1, 1st and 16 for Emmanuel at the top of the 4th. Stevenson steps right, throws a long ball on the deep curl / comeback to Robinson, who comes back for it to make it 2nd and 1. After that, there's a low throw to Cooper Riley. She's not really able to make a move here, so that goes for no gain. 3rd and 1 here. Stevenson then takes a shot deep down the right sideline to a receiver who has a step, but she's just not able to readjust the ball, turning the wrong way here. So that is incomplete here. Emmanuel then decides to go for it in their own quadrant. Here's what happens. Stevenson rolls left, tries to get the ball out, but it's just short of any receiver here. She was under pressure here after having to reverse fields. And so that is a quick 4 and out. And on top of that, Barton gets the ball here in the red zone to start this one, 1st and 19. 1st down, 19 yards away from scoring. It's a handoff I think right here to Sarah Merritt, who makes the first one miss and then stretches this play outside, slipping a couple more pulls here before they finally get her, but the damage is done, a 14-yard gain. 2nd and 5 here. Rigdon has somebody open, but takes off right after she sees it late here, and she is stopped just short of scoring. It's now 3rd and 1. They then direct snap it to Sydney Dash, who punches it in to make it 25-18. On the PAT, Rigdon finds Ajabata right over the middle, and that makes it 26-18 as Barton is in control here by 8. But Emmanuel's not out of it. Still 9 minutes left in this game. Here's what happens. Stevenson, with no rush, just ends up checking it down to Cooper Riley, who gets 1st and 18 approaching midfield. They go hurry-up offense here, going tempo. They go ahead and send 2 to Stevenson. She finds Riley again, who is just able to get 2 yards here. 2nd down here, Stevenson under pressure. Makes a bad throw. Fortunately, it is just incomplete and not turned over. So on 3rd down here, Stevenson looking to get something going here. Lofts one deep on the post to Gwen Carter, who makes an excellent adjustment, bringing in the tough catch for a tough gain here. The safety just getting turned around there, and Gwen Carter doing a good job tracking down the ball. And because the safety got turned around, she had to end up holding her. So they go ahead and add on some more yards there. So here we go. 1st and 4 pass midfield, knocking on the doorsteps of the red zone. Stevenson lets another one go, but the receiver just stops running this route a little too early, so it is incomplete. 2nd down here, Stevenson this time holds onto the ball for a little too long, and Jacayla Robinson comes up with a big-time sack to now make it 3rd and 10. 3rd and 10 here, Emmanuel needing to score soon here. Stevenson with the snap just misses an open out route right here and just gets too aggressive going deep on a well-covered pass, and so that's incomplete. If she hit the out route, that would have been a 1st and some more gains, obviously, on that one. And so now it's 4th down. There's about 5 minutes left. Emmanuel calls a timeout. This is a must convert scenario right here. And so after the timeout, here we go. 4th down and 10. Stevenson with the ball. Launches one deep over the middle. She sees that it's man-to-man. There is no safety. It's one-on-one again, and it's Gwen Carter. Once again, inside leverage, catching a tough catch, bumping the corner out the way to make it 26-24. Another great catch and route by Gwen Carter to go ahead and bring this one in here. And by the way, sorry, on her other touchdown, it was a wheel route, and she had to step on the corner here. Still got good leverage, but Gwen Carter getting even better leverage on this touchdown inside. Like I said, corner all over her, but she goes ahead and bumps her out of the way. The safety just getting in there a little bit too late here as they go ahead and make it 26-24. And so here we go. They're going for 2 here to try to tie this game. Stevenson with the snap, throws the corner route, and then a crazy interception here by Long. Goes ahead and keeps it at 26-24. This is just an excellent play by the corner here to prevent this one from happening, in a very physical play as well. And so here we go. 4th down, 4:43 left here in the 4th quarter. Sora Rigdon and company trying to get something going, and they do. They get near midfield here, but after a couple unfortunate runs here and passes that just don't go super far, as well as a dropped handoff, it is now 4th and 9 as we approach the 2-minute warning. And then after the warning, 4th and 9 near midfield, looking to ice the game with the 1st down. Here's what happens. Sora Rigdon gets a snap, tries to pass it, but just runs out of time, forcing this one into triple coverage. The pick is dropped on purpose here after she tries to force that pass, and so Emmanuel gets good field positioning just past midfield. And so here we go, looking to win the game. 1 minute 49 seconds left. It is 1st and 11 past midfield for Emmanuel, looking to take the lead and the upset win. Here's how it starts. Stevenson finds Cooper Riley on the check down, goes ahead and gets 8 there. Clock is ticking as she stays inbound. On the next play, Stevenson sidesteps before throwing this one away away, trying not to take the sack here, which is a smart thing to do. And so now it's 3rd down and 3. Clock stops at 1:20, and they're able to huddle up here. On 3rd down here, Stevenson with the snap throws the quick hitch right to Robinson, who just barely gets the first down past the midfield. Clock stops as they have to move the chains. By the time they get the chain set and the clock starts again, Emmanuel is already set at the line here. They go ahead and snap it. It's a high snap here. Stevenson has to corral this one and kind of throws the timing of this whole play off. So she has to check it down to Desiree, I think it's Keelis, I want to say, who brings it in for a decent gain here to make it 2nd and 17. Emmanuel then decides to burn one of their timeouts right here with about 57 seconds left, trying to get something good. After the timeout, Stevenson with the snap rolls right under pressure. Once again, throws this one away. This looks like the play was meant to be a deep shot here, but they do send 2 here, and so to preserve the clock and the field positioning, Stevenson makes a good decision. 3rd down. Now 39 seconds left here. Stevenson with the snap, rolls left, almost sacked, but just barely slips her and throws it deep to Carter, who runs his post corner to perfection and brings it in for a massive gain. Just a perfect route by Gwen Carter right here to shake her defender in man-to-man. So now it's 1st and 13 in the red zone. 27 seconds left here. Can Emmanuel do it? Here's what happens on 1st down. Stevenson with the snap, plants her feet, locks, loads, and throws to the corner to Gwen Carter. This one's kind of lofted up there, and Carter brings it in on a great catch, but is just not able to bring in the ball. If Stevenson maybe zipped this one in instead of lofting it, she might have had it. And so, unfortunately, that touchdown does not count. Now there's 12 seconds left. Still plenty of time. You have a couple plays here. It's 2nd down. And so here we go. 2nd down. Stevenson with the snap tries to step up, throw up the seam, but the ball is maybe a step out of reach of the receiver, who just barely had a step on her defender. This was a decent ball, but just barely out of reach. So now it's 3rd down. 7 seconds left. You probably have 2 plays if you play this one right here. And so here we go. Here's what happens on 3rd down. Stevenson with the snap, lofts one left to Brown, but there's definitely some contact here early as she falls down before the ball gets there. And so that's a PI on Barton. That is an automatic first, but there's maybe a second left here, so they will get one more play regardless. It is now 1st and 7 as they are moved up just a little bit here. And so here we go for the game, the last play of the game. Stevenson with the snap goes ahead and puts it up to Brown, who's in one-on-one, but Valerie Bada knocks it away. Great coverage here to go ahead and win the game as Barton escapes with a big-time win over Emmanuel, 26-24, in an absolute thriller of a game here. This was just great coverage by Valerie Bada here on the taller Gianna Brown, who's been dominating all game, mind you, to go ahead and make this play and win the game. And so that is your playmaker of the game, Valerie Bada. Let's go ahead and look at the stats here. She had a great game, 11 receptions, 118 yards on offense, and then on defense for Bada, 4 flagpoles, that interception, and the pass breakup. So there you go there. But let's look at the rest of these players here. Sora Rigdon, 31 of 54, 316 yards. A little bit of a sloppy game here. 2 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Also only had 8 rushing yards here. Sydney Dash had that rushing touchdown. Deja Reed threw one of these passes and it was picked off, so there was that as well. Outside of Bada, who led all receivers in receptions and yards, Sarah Merritt had a good game, 9 receptions, 75 yards and a touchdown. Deja Reed, 4 for 53, and Zania Long, 4 for 46 and a touchdown for them. Defensively, Alexa Whedon co-led with Jacayla Robinson with 6 flagpoles each, and Robinson had a sack as well as Angie Lar with that sack. Bada had that interception, like I said, but so did Zania Long with a big-time interception there, as Barton survives this game against Emmanuel. Emmanuel, though, not a bad game. Lillian Stevenson played a decent game, an up and down one, but a decent game here. 362 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, did take 2 sacks, which were tough there. But receiving-wise, they were popping off. Gwen Carter with a great game. 8 receptions, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gianna Brown was physically dominating this game as well. 8 receptions, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Elsie Baker, 2 for 44. Shane Cooper-Riley, 7 for 37. Kaylin Robinson, 3 for 22. Sydney Stoker, 3 for 17. And Desiree, I think it's Keyless, 1 for 2 yards here. Defensively, Kylie Warren-Young led with 8 flagpoles, also had 2 interceptions. Spivey here had an interception and 2 pass breakups. Gianna Brown had an interception as well. As Emmanuel just falls a little bit short in this one here. And they had their chances. I mean, right here at the goal line, that's a straight one-on-one play. Gianna Brown just happened to lose this one after winning a lot of other matchups earlier on in the game, which is just unfortunate. But even outside of this last drive here, I mean, they had other drives where they could have scored, right? And instead they went 4 and out, which is obviously just tough there. And so, it's just one of those games where I'm sure Emmanuel is looking at like a million different little plays that could have meant the difference here. But I will say, very impressed with how Emmanuel has played. They've come a long way since last season here, and this young core has been balling out. This is definitely a game I'm sure that they will circle for next time here whenever they play next. But if you're this young core, if you're this young coaching staff, you gotta feel good about pushing the team that has been one of the top teams in the Conference Carolinas, and for now, or at least I think so for now, is out front. So there you go there. Now, for Barton, this was definitely a scare here. Sawyer Rigdon, they kind of got her playing a little bit uncharacteristic here, taking some deep shots, missing some easy throws that, were just wide open here. And so they probably could have won this one by more here, but just offensively, they're just out of sync here. And a lot of that was because of the Emmanuel defense doing a good job in coverage, showing them some different looks there, and allowing Sawyer Rigdon to make some decisive decisions. But, for now, Barton gets away. I think their skill players had a great game. Valerie Angebada balled out per usual. Sarah Merritt did her things. Zania Long had some great plays both on offense and defense here. They have a very talented skill group right here. And Sawyer Rigdon, I mean, she's a great quarterback as well. But you gotta give some credit to the skill group who played extremely well in this one. And so, once again, Barton wins a thriller of a game, 26-24 over Emmanuel in Conference Carolina play. And then one last thing, make sure you go ahead and find ways to support North Carolina in sanctioning girls high school flag football. If this college team in Barton College is any indication, they could play over there and they need those opportunities. So love seeing this one as Barton once again gets a big time win, 26-24 over Emmanuel.
What is going on, folks? This is Gino with the Playmaker's Corner podcast, and I thought I would start off this week with a recap of the NAIA game of the week. Number 11 Kansas Wesleyan faced off for the first time this season against number 3 Ottawa, since they both faced off and went to double overtime in the playoffs last year against each other. This was yet another classic game, so let's go ahead and jump right into it here. Ottawa is going to start with the ball in this one. And on 1st and 6, Anna Anderson in the second quadrant steps up and hits Marley Spielberg for a 16-yard gain. And on the very next play, she finds Alyssa Linkus for a big gain and a first down near the red zone. Ottawa's offense rolling early here. And following an incomplete pass, Aaliyah Wood picks off the pass intended for Olga Sotillo. So that makes it 1st and 6 following that pick from Aaliyah Wood on the Kansas Wesleyan 14-yard line. Flash forward a few plays here, and it is now 4th and 4 near midfield here for Kansas Wesleyan. And Chihiro Wada surveys and finds Yui Watanabe for a big gain near the red zone to keep this drive alive. And following a personal foul penalty on Ottawa on 3rd and 9, it is now Kansas Wesleyan ball 1st and 19 in the red zone. Flash forward a few plays here, and it is once again 4th down here for Kansas Wesleyan's offense, this time on the 1-yard line, and they desperately need a score here as Chihiro Awada finds Aaliyah Young for the touchdown to capitalize on the Aaliyah Wood interception. It is 7-0 Kansas Wesleyan after that touchdown. Ottawa would end up punting on their next drive. And then Kansas Wesleyan, when they got their ball back, they took it all the way down to the 5-yard line. This was a very long drive for them. They took a ton of time off the clock. But Isabella Sosa stepped up big time here on 4th down to force a turnover on downs here to prevent Ottawa from going down 2 scores. It is still 7-0 now as we go into halftime. Kansas Wesleyan starts with the ball here in the second half, 1st and 6. The Coyotes continue to drive the field as they take this drive all the way down for 6 points after Chihiro Awada found Aaliyah Wood for the touchdown. Aaliyah snags the extra point as well here to make it 14-0 over number 3 Ottawa. This Kansas Wesleyan offense just cannot be stopped. Ottawa now takes over 1st and 6, down 2 scores midway through the 3rd quarter. Anna Anderson and the Ottawa offense would go the length of the field here with a healthy mix of basically every receiver getting to touch the ball. This includes a 25-yard completion to Alyssa Linkus, immediately followed by a 30-yard reception by Olga Sotillo. On 4th and 3 in the red zone, Anna Anderson surveys and decides to keep it herself to put Ottawa back in this game. The extra point was stopped though, so the score is now 14-6. Kansas Wesleyan leads late in the 3rd quarter. Kansas Wesleyan would actually end up punting here on their next drive, leaving the door wide open for an Ottawa comeback. Ottawa starts with the ball here 1st and 8 on their own 32 with around 10 minutes left in the game. Anna Anderson isn't messing around on this drive as she finds Olga Sotillo for a big gain to make it 1st and 15 across midfield. 2 plays later, Anderson connects with Marley Spielberg for a 20-yard gain to put Ottawa in the red zone. A personal foul penalty on Kansas Wesleyan makes it 1st and 3, and Anna Anderson finds Alyssa Linkus right away for the touchdown. The extra point is stopped, though, as Kansas Wesleyan still leads 14-12. An illegal motion penalty on 1st down here for Kansas Wesleyan would put their drive back 5 yards, and they would actually end up going 3 and out here. And it is now 1st down for Ottawa, and another 1st down after Anna Anderson hits Olga Sotillo for a big gain. Anderson then finds Sotillo, who flips it to Alyssa Linkus, who makes it a 1st down in the red zone. Anderson and Sotillo won't be stopped, though, as Anderson hits Olga Sotillo in the end zone to put Ottawa back on top. They have scored 20 points unanswered now after the extra point to Marley Spielberg. It is now 20-14. Ottawa leads. It is now 1st and 6 for Kansas Wesleyan as they desperately need that lead back from Ottawa with 3 minutes and 32 seconds left in the game. Let's skip ahead. It is 4th and 4 in the 1st quadrant already, but Chihiro Awada does not want to go home yet. She finds Tomoyo Yagi for 6 yards to barely get the 1st down. 2 plays later on 2nd and 17, Chihiro Awada and her longtime target Jasmine Whitfield connect for 54 yards and a huge 1st down across midfield. Illegal motion makes it 1st and 8, and Awada hits Aaliyah Wood for 5 yards and Jasmine Whitfield for 4 yards on the next play to make it 1st and 19 in the red zone. Awada finds Janice Washington for 8 yards and calls timeout. It's 2nd and 11 when they come back, and Awada and Washington connect once again here to make it 3rd and 4. On 3rd and 4 in the red zone, Awada tries to find Aaliyah Wood, but it is incomplete, so it will be 4th and 4 as Awada takes the snap. She fires it to Janice Washington, who hauls it in as number 11 Kansas Wesleyan will win this one 21-20 over number 3 ranked Ottawa. And here are some thoughts on this game. I mean, that was a near crazy comeback by Ottawa. But Kansas Wesleyan prevails for a huge win here to avenge their playoff loss from last season. You just knew Ottawa was going to stay in that game after that 4th down stop in the red zone, plus the multiple 3-and-outs that they forced on defense in the 4th quarter. At the same time, though, it really seemed like Kansas Wesleyan had this Ottawa defense figured out. They had several drives that went the length of the field, and it really felt like Kansas Wesleyan was in the driver's seat for the majority of this game. Chihiro Wada finished with 374 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and no turnovers on 28 of 52 passing. Just ridiculous efficiency. Aaliyah Wood put on a star-studded performance as well, with 8 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. Plus 2 picks on defense. She completely shut down her side of the field in that game. Janice Washington also had a big game here with 7 receptions for 72 yards and the game-winning touchdown at the end of the fourth quarter. For Ottawa, Olga Sotillo was a monster in this game with 10 receptions for 175 yards and a touchdown. Alyssa Linkus was at 98 yards and a touchdown as well. Now, defensively for Ottawa, they really seemed to struggle outside of a couple of drives to get a grasp on Owada and how consistent that offense is. This game makes the KCAC tournament so much more interesting at the end of the season, and it's going to be awesome to watch. In the meantime, though, this puts Kansas Wesleyan in a great position here for the rest of the season to solidify themselves as a top 8 team to get into the NAIA Nationals. Now, that Ottawa versus Kansas Wesleyan game was an absolute classic, but let's go ahead and take some time here and look at the rest of the landscape here for the NAIA women's college flag football scene here in Week 7. We're going to start off here with one game from Monday, March 23rd. Number 8 ranked Life gave number 1 Warner their first little scare of the season so far, but the Royals prevailed here with a 32-20 win. And basically here, looking at the box score, Catherine Hutchinson went 19 for 31 for 321 yards with 5 passing touchdowns and 1 interception. Jessica Finley snagged 7 receptions for a team-leading 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then an interception on defense. Maggie Lauber caught 2 touchdowns as well, and then Anna Vincenzini caught the other one. On defense for Warner, Lauren Clark led the way with 12 flag pulls and a sack. For Life, Cheyenne Brooks held her own, going 32 for 42 for 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Altiera Gooch caught both of those touchdowns to go with 7 receptions for 83 yards. Defensively here for Life, Promise Cooper caught the 1 interception, and then Kyra Zachary had a sack. Next up here, let's move it on to Tuesday, March 24th. Number 5 Milligan completely destroyed King University by a score of 62-0. Bridget Kaiser led the way with 215 yards, 7 passing touchdowns, and then 1 interception on 17 of 29 passing. And then she also added 10 carries for 51 yards. Potentially Utility Player of the Year finalist Ashton Weirley had a passing touchdown, a 35-yard rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown, but she wasn't done there. She also added a sack on defense. Definitely some ridiculous versatility there from Weirley. And then the leading receiver was Krista Quinn with 5 receptions for 73 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. And then Lily Rumroll had a big game too with 3 receptions for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. On defense for Milligan, Abby Lynn Laprice had 2 interceptions, and then 3 other Buffaloes had an interception as well. Next up here, Arizona Christian found a way to shut out Ottawa University of Arizona 27-0. It wasn't Cece Macagnano's best game, but she went 13 for 28 for 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. I don't know where the other 2 touchdowns came from, and there aren't any punt or interception return touchdowns in the box score either. So I am going to credit them to the other 2 players on defense who had an interception, those being Alana D'Alessio, sorry if I mispronounced that there, and Shea Gonzalez. Shanna Hunton also had a sack in that game here for Arizona Christian. There's not a ton to highlight here for Ottawa, Arizona on offense, but on defense, Peyton Nielsen led the team with 10 pulls, Yanni Hall had 2 sacks, and then Charlie Cook and Aaliyah Oliver both caught an interception. A massive fourth quarter from number 1 Warner led them to another blowout win over Reinhardt by a score of 41-0. Catherine Hutchinson in this one had her least accurate showing so far, going 32 for 52 for 346 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And like I said, they really started to pile on there in the fourth quarter, but things were going a bit slow there until then. Her leading receiver was Jessica Finley once again with 12 receptions for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Anna Vincenzini had 7 pulls and an interception on defense. And then on offense here, she also added 3 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown. Avalon Lux Offerman did her thing as well here with 8 receptions for 59 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns there. And Kaylee Thomas had 6 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, Lauren Clark is still rolling here. She had 2 sacks, and then Maggie Lauber had 2 sacks, plus 62 receiving yards on offense. And then finally here, Adriana Williams also had 2 sacks. For Reinhardt here, they couldn't really get anything going on offense, but on defense, Destiny Smith had an interception, and then Bly Townsell, sorry if I mispronounced that there, led the team with 9 pulls and 3 pass deflections. We're going to keep things rolling. We're going to move on to Wednesday, March 25th. In the first game here, Graceland bounced back with a very nice 51-7 win over Kodey. Sierra Flores had one of her best games so far, going 26 for 34 for 251 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in this one. And she also added an interception on defense. Great job there from Flores. Also here, Amari Bird led the team with 12 receptions for 117 yards and 3 touchdowns. Delaney Mondino had a great game too with 7 receptions for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. And we're not done, folks. Sydney Gann had 7 receptions as well here for 63 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Graceland had 3 different players who caught an interception on defense, those being Colorado's very own Sadie Lee, Sierra Flores, like I mentioned before, and then Lazaya Kinville. Sorry if I mispronounced that there. For Kodey, they struggled pretty badly on offense here, but on defense, Zitali Botts had 14 flag pulls and an interception, and then Monica Blanc and then Kaya Salazar both had a sack. Moving on now, Heston got their first 2 wins as an NAIA program here on Wednesday, the first being a 68-0 domination of Bethel for their first KCAC win, as well as their first win in program history. And then they took down Pratt Community College in a very close game, 29-26. Looking at the Bethel game, Alexa Pabon went ahead and put up 9 total touchdowns, with 7 of those passing and 2 rushing. Definitely her best game to date. Her top 2 receivers were Akiva Brown with 5 receptions for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also Lauren Payne with 3 receptions for 119 yards and 1 touchdown. Destiny Ortiz also caught 2 touchdowns on offense here. Looking on the defensive side of the ball, they had 10 tackles for loss as a team, with 4 of those going to Tiana McPherson. You also had Emma Fanninsteele. Sorry if I mispronounced that there. I'm sure I butchered that. She got 2 sacks in this game. In the win over Pratt, Alexis Pabon, she went with another huge game, going 19 for 31 for 192 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and no turnovers, making it 12 total touchdowns that she was responsible for just on Wednesday. Akiva Brown had herself another awesome game with 4 receptions for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns, but then on defense, she went ahead and caught 2 interceptions in this 3-point win. Lauren Payne and Destiny Ortiz both caught an interception as well. In their first of 4 games from Week 7, number 12 Lindsey Wilson took down a very tough Cumberland squad, 27-19. Cumberland came out to a 19-13 lead at halftime, but Lindsey Wilson kept them scoreless in the second half on their way to this win. Amaya Pablo threw 4 passing touchdowns and also 3 interceptions in this game, and she went 20 for 37 passing. She also added 65 rushing yards in this one. Carly Yoakley was the leading receiver here with 3 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Cadence Wormers and Jenna Lindsay both caught a touchdown as well. On defense, Chrissy Raberchek had 2 sacks and Ashton Dickerson caught the only interception. Looking at Cumberland now, Madison Woodward had a 3-touchdown game with 2 of those passing and 1 rushing, and all of those in the first half. Her leading receiver was Caliana Griggs with 3 receptions for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. On defense, Davis led the team with 2 interceptions and 5 flag pulls, and then Zora Neal also had a sack. In their second of 3 games this week, number 11, Kansas Wesleyan shut out Southwestern 39-0. Chihiro Awada threw for 283 yards and 5 touchdowns with no turnovers. Aaliyah Wood took over in this game with 9 receptions for 113 yards and 3 touchdowns. You also had Aaliyah Young and Jasmine Wood, who both caught a touchdown also. On defense here, Laura Hernandez-Sanchez caught 2 interceptions, and Zoe Lucas and Tomoya Yagi both caught an interception as well. Ava Desasari, sorry if I mispronounced that there, and Kylie Douglas both had a sack here in this game. For Southwestern, Kennedy Wesley had a huge game here with 2 sacks, as well as leading the team with 7 flag pulls. Andrea Moon also had 2 tackles for loss in this game here, and Mary Jones caught an interception, putting on for Colorado here. And number 6 Baker slaughtered William Woods 42-0 for their first of 2 big wins this week. 5 different Baker Wildcats attempted a pass in this game. Tara Lorente led the way, going 10 for 15 for 135 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Keely Phillips and Sanaya Waller both had a rushing touchdown, with Waller also getting a receiving touchdown, and Keely Phillips got an interception on defense. You also had Mahogany Simmons, who led the receivers with 5 receptions for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns here. On defense, Faith Phillips had 4 sacks, and Kenya Arias had a sack and an interception. Next here, number 3 Ottawa bounced back big time after their loss to number 11 Kansas Wesleyan with a 40-7 win over St. Mary. Anna Anderson had an awesome game here, going 25 for 35 for 243 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Tatiana Dos Santos caught 2 touchdowns in this one, and Marley Spielberg finished with a team-leading 9 catches for 90 yards. Defensively for the Braves, Isabella Sosa, Allison Olsen, and DJ Parrish all had 1 sack each, and Casey Hart had the 1 interception in this game. From the Campbellsville Frenzy, we had number 14 St. Francis get a big-time win 32-26 over the hosting team, the Campbellsville Tigers. In this one, it was 13-13 at halftime, and then St. Francis had a 19-point fourth quarter to outlast Campbellsville in this one. Looking at the box score here for St. Francis, Jayana Reyes went 31 for 38 for 351 yards, 4 touchdowns, and just 1 interception here. Great game there from Reyes. She also ran for 21 yards and added another touchdown to make it 5 total on the game. For receivers, Harmony Walker went ahead and put up a huge game with 14 receptions for 169 yards and 1 touchdown. You also had Haley Witherspoon with 5 receptions for 75 yards. And then Mackenzie Fuse, and it looks like Nina Camahill and Ava Cousins all caught 1 touchdown here as well. Looking at the defensive side of the ball here for St. Francis, you had Namie Singer get a sack, and also you had Yolanda Barrera get a tackle for loss. Looking at Campbellsville now, Corny Talkington went 22 for 32, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no turnovers. Talkington also added 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to make it 4 total on the game. Very nice game for her. In the receiving room, Alex Odom, of course, put up big numbers here with 6 receptions for 87 yards and a team-leading 2 touchdowns. You also had Natalia Gomez, had a great game. 5 receptions, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball here for Campbellsville, Woody Tamaya led the team with 10 tackles here, and then Imani Scott had a big game, folks. They put up 8 total flag pulls and 2 sacks. And final here, Alex Odom doing both sides of the ball here with an interception on defense. Campbellsville went ahead and had a huge fourth quarter of their own in the next game here against Siena Heights. They were down 21-12 heading into the fourth quarter, but they went ahead and put up 19 points to win 31-21 over Siena Heights. Corny Talkington had another great game here, going 21 for 38 for 232 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And now, as far as receivers go, Monica Montez led the way here with 6 receptions for 61 yards and 1 touchdown. Then Ava Kelly caught 2 touchdowns, with Carly Troutman catching the final one here for 4 total. And now looking at the defensive side here for Campbellsville, Rashaya Minix had a tackle for loss, Monica Montez had an interception, and then Woody Tamaya and Amani Scott led the team with 5 total flag pulls here. Looking at Siena Heights, Brianna Sanders went 10 for 18 for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. She also added 1 rushing touchdown here in this one. As far as receivers go here for Siena Heights, Adrian Griffin led the way big time here with 6 receptions for 96 yards and 1 touchdown. Brooke Cooper also caught a touchdown there for Siena Heights. On defense, Brianna Sanders caught an interception, and Simone Fitzer had a sack. In our next game here, number 8 Life took on Cumberland for a great matchup, with Life taking the win here by the score of 25-14. Cheyenne Brooks had a solid game, going 24 for 39 for 292 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. She also had a rushing touchdown to go with 28 rushing yards. As far as receivers go, Promise Cooper had 5 receptions for 66 yards, and 3 of those touchdowns, all of them went to her. Now, looking on the defensive side of the ball here for Life, they had Michaela Morgan get a tackle for loss, as well as Kennedy Bryan, and Reagan Washington led the team with flag pulls. Looking at Cumberland, Madison Woodard went 25 for 44 for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. Looking at their receivers, Caliana Griggs had 7 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown, and Marley Hyde, not too far behind her, had 6 receptions for 73 yards and another touchdown. On defense, Jada Starnes had an interception, and then Jocelyn Diaz and Brianna Taylor led the team with 4 flag pulls. Cumberland University went ahead and squashed Wittenberg by the score of 54-0. Looking at the box score, Madison Woodard had 7 passing touchdowns in this one. Looking at the receiving room, Marley Hyde was the leading receiver with 8 receptions for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns there. Looking on the defensive side of the ball here for Cumberland, Jocelyn Diaz had 2 tackles for loss. Sorry for mispronouncing that there. Davis had 1 interception, and then Ava Horrigan had 5 tackles and then a tackle for loss. Number 12, Lindsey Wilson took care of business here against Siena Heights. Amaya Pablo had a great game, going 21 for 31 for 267 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rushing the ball, Pablo also added 43 rushing yards and another rushing touchdown. Looking at the receivers here, Carly Yoakley had 10 receptions for 103 yards, and then 3 different receivers caught a touchdown here for Lindsey Wilson. Looking at their defensive side of the ball stats, Emerson Gregory and Harper Gregory both caught 1 interception each, with Emily Good leading the team with 7 flag pulls. Looking at Siena Heights' stats, they did struggle quite a bit on offense. Their 1 touchdown came from a Brianna Sanders rushing touchdown. Looking at their defensive stats, though, Kayamora Dunn led the team with 10 flag pulls, and then Gabrielle Cherry and Simone Fitzer both had 1 sack each. Number 17, Hope International had a big-time statement win over La Sierra, 35-0, to definitely establish that dominance there in the GSAC conference. Hope's QB, Anahi Morales, went 22 for 37 for 263 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Looking at the receivers here for Hope, Madison Powell had 7 receptions for 92 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then Anna Sadiq and Larissa Perez both caught a touchdown. On defense for Hope International, Anahi Morales also had a tackle for loss. Nala Nelson and Nia Gilly both had an interception here for Hope as well. Back over to the Campbellsville Flag Frenzy here. We had a great game between number 8 Life and number 14 St. Francis, where number 14 St. Francis took the win 27-18. Gianna Reyes had a big game here, going 22 for 31 for 209 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. She also added 55 rushing yards on 11 attempts. For receivers, Harmony Walker had a huge game with 7 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. And then Madison Myers-Rabitas had 2 receiving touchdowns, and Mackenzie Fuse had a receiving touchdown as well here. On defense here, it looks like Nina Camahill had an interception. And then also on defense, Ava Cousins led the team with 6 total flagpoles. For Life, Cheyenne Brooks went 16 for 32 for 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception against that very tough St. Francis defense. For receivers, Reagan Washington led the way with 56 receiving yards, and LaToya Mitchell finished with 6 receptions for 47 yards, a touchdown. And then Xavier Mann had a great game, 2 receptions, 43 yards, and both of those receptions ended up being touchdowns here. On defense for Life, Kyra Zachary led the team with 8 flagpoles. Number 1 Warner absolutely squashed Alabama State by the score of 89-7. Taking a brief look at the box score, you had Katherine Hutchinson put up 463 passing yards, 12 passing touchdowns, and 0 turnovers. Just absolutely ridiculous. There's no words for that kind of production. But looking at the stats here, also ridiculous. Maggie Lauber led the way with 5 receptions, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jessica Finley not too far behind her, 9 receptions, 126 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. Avalon Lux Offerman, the freshman phenom, 9 receptions, 108 yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. And then Angeline Bunting and Serenity Hickman both had a receiving touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball here for Warner, Maggie Lauber led the way with 4 sacks. Adriana Williams also had a sack. And then Angeline Bunting had the interception. The Thomas Nighthawks went ahead and absolutely killed Weber, number 10 ranked Weber at that, 45-6 to put themselves firmly back in the top 25 here. Looking at Destiny Lockett's stats, these have to be her best stats so far as a quarterback. She put up 310 yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and no turnovers on 24 of 33 passing. Rushing the ball, Lockett also put up 49 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. For receivers for Thomas, Azariah Greer with 4 receptions for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Sabina Schlegelmalk, sorry if I mispronounced that there, had 4 receptions, 47 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Amiri Logan and Nika Dean both had receiving touchdowns as well there. On defense, Uliesley Hodgson with 10 flagpoles leading the team. Destiny Lockett with an interception, Amiri Logan and Azariah Greer also with an interception, and then of course Ayanna Harris with the sack. Looking at Weber's stats, Luciana Herrera went 21 for 33 with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. For receivers, Yasmin Lott with 11 receptions for 69 yards. Cheyenne Durand had the 1 touchdown here for 5 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. On defense for Weber, Kalia Gator with 6 total tackles and then 2 sacks in this one. In a very tightly contested matchup here, number 5 Milligan went ahead and took down Lees McRae by a score of 13-12. That Lees McRae defense always putting them in close games. It's amazing. But looking at the stats here, Bridget Kaiser went 18 for 31 for 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. For receivers, you had Lily Rumroll leading the team with 7 receptions for 57 yards and no touchdowns. Krista Quinn had a receiving touchdown, and so did Sam Urso. On defense for Milligan, Parker Bridges, of course, led the team in flagpoles with 7. And then you had Annabelle Rhodes, of course, get an interception. And yeah, overall great game here for Milligan to go ahead and get that close win over Lees McRae. La Sierra got a big win here over an emerging Simpson University team by a score of 26-15. Ariana Rivera went 29 for 41 for 257 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Looking at the receivers here for La Sierra, Grace Galdamez had 9 receptions for 97 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And then Kaylee Mejia and Haley Medina both had receiving touchdowns as well. Looking on the defensive side of the ball here for La Sierra, you had Gia Aldama with 8 total flag pulls and a sack, Grace Galdamez with an interception, and Mackenzie McMillan with 2 interceptions total. Now for Simpson, Sophia Wright went 21 for 40 for 172 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. She also rushed in for a touchdown here with 29 rushing yards. Haley Cruz caught the 1 receiving touchdown here for Simpson, and then Taylor Zalunardo had 4 receptions for 64 yards. On defense here, Kylie Schultz and Taylor Zalunardo led the way with 9 flag pulls apiece, and then Deborah Aguirre and Imani Watkins both had an interception. Arizona Christian went ahead and got their second win of the week here with a 28-0 shutout win over Benedictine Mesa. CC Macagnano went 18 for 31, 233 yards with 4 passing touchdowns and 2 turnovers. For receivers here for Arizona Christian, Michaela Navarro had 5 receptions, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown. All of those led the team. And then Alina Tobar had 5 receptions, 32 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. On defense here for Arizona Christian, Shayna Hunton led the way with 10 flag pulls. And then Bella Huguez had 2 sacks there. Looking at Benedictine Mesa, Gianni Ruiz went 24 for 46 for 192 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. For receivers, Brooklyn Miller had 5 receptions for 44 yards, and that led the team. On defense here for Benedictine Mesa, they had 2 players get an interception, those being Emily Williams and Isabella Mizquez. And then Kitana Pabon Diaz led the way with 4 flag pulls for Mesa. Number 5 Milligan absolutely stomped on number 18 Wingate by a score of 26-7. Bridget Kaiser went 20 of 26 for 242 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 turnover. And then as far as receiving goes, Lily Rumroll had 3 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. Caitlin Quinn had 3 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. And then Krista Quinn also had a receiving touchdown here. On defense for Milligan, Parker Bridges led the way in flag pulls, of course, with 5 and then a sack. Michaela Davis had 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. And then Lily Rumroll added an interception on defense as well here. Siena Heights went ahead and got a huge win against Cumberland, 38-13 in that Campbellsville flag frenzy. Looking at the stats here, Siena Heights, Brianna Sanders went 10 for 16 for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. And then Kaya Mora Dunn went 7 for 10 for 101 yards, 2 touchdowns and no picks. For rushing yards, Kaya Mora Dunn had 69 rushing yards and a touchdown on 8 attempts. As far as receivers go, Mackenzie Pope was the leading receiver with 3 receptions for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Adriana Griffin had 6 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. And Brianna Sanders, 2 receptions, 39 yards, and a touchdown here. On defense here for Siena Heights, they had 4 different players get an interception, those being none other than Brianna Sanders, showing off that versatility here, Adele Hogland, Adrian Griffin, and Mackenzie Pope. All 4 of those players had an interception. And then we had Simone Fitzer with 3 tackles for loss and 2 sacks for Siena Heights. Looking at Campbellsville's stats now, Madison Woodard, not her best game, 15 for 29, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Looking at receivers here for Cumberland, Trinity Ryan had 2 receptions for 76 yards and a touchdown. Callie-Anna Griggs had 3 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown here. And on defense for Cumberland, they had Jocelyn Diaz get 3 pulls and a sack. Ava Horrigan led the way, as well as Jada Starnes with 5 tackles for loss. And then Breonna Taylor had an interception here, the only one in this game. Lindsey Wilson got a great win here over Wittenberg to bounce back 52-6. Looking at the stats here, Amaya Pablo went 21 for 29 with 5 passing touchdowns and 1 interception. She also added 65 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown on 5 attempts. Gabby Cruz was the leading receiver with 5 receptions for 70 yards. And then Jenna Lindsay, 4 receptions, 45 yards, and all 4 of those receptions went for touchdowns. Emerson Gregory also went ahead and had 3 receptions, 38 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. On defense here for Lindsey Wilson, Jaylee Santiago had 6 flag pulls, 1 tackle for loss, and then Emily Good, Gabby Cruz, and Ashton Dickerson all had 1 interception each. In the Bruton Parker versus Point game, Point got a nice 26-12 win here. Kariah Williams went 22 for 37, 233 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. Also for Point, Shanera Shaheed had a rushing touchdown. As far as receivers go, Shaheed also had 7 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. The leader in receptions was Leah Prather with 8 receptions, 42 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns there. On defense for Point, Shanera Shaheed not done there with 1 interception and second on the team in flag pulls with 6. The leader was Zykeria Williams with 8 flag pulls. Also on defense here, Kenzie Fillion had an interception, and then Anaya Wesley had a tackle for loss. Looking at Bruton Parker's stats, they had Keishana Gusby with 21 attempts for 106 yards and a touchdown here. Gusby went 4 for 10 for 15 yards and 2 interceptions passing the ball. On defense for Bruton Parker, Sophia Souza had 2 sacks and 6 flag pulls, which led the team. Also leading the team in flag pulls was Abby Tawalt with 6, and then Kennedy Osborne on defense had a tackle for loss and an interception with 3 flag pulls. At the flag frenzy at Campbellsville, we had Siena Heights get another big win here, this time over Wittenberg by a score of 54-0. No box score in this one. Yet another game here from number 1 ranked Warner. They went ahead and smacked down the familiar foe of the Thomas Nighthawks by a score of 41-7. Checking out the stats here, Catherine Hutchinson, 35 for 52, 288 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no turnovers. For receivers here, Jessica Finley, 13 receptions, 124 yards, and 4 touchdowns to continue this unbelievable season that Finley is putting up. You also had Omariah Gordon with 6 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown. And finally, Maggie Lauber had the other receiving touchdown. On defense for Warner, Adriana Williams continuing to kill it here with 2 sacks. You also had Maggie Lauber with a sack. And as far as interceptions go, you already know Jessica Finley had to get one here. So looking now at Thomas's stat line, Destiny Lockett went 17 for 29, 127 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. Definitely a big contrast from her game against Weber. But she did also add 26 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. On defense for Thomas, not much to write home about here, but you had Ayanna Harris get a sack and Azariah Greer lead the team in flag pulls with 7. In what was most likely the biggest and most exciting win outside of that Kansas Wesleyan win over Ottawa, we had Campbellsville take out number 8 Life by a score of 27-14. I don't have the box score in that game or any highlights, unfortunately, here, but that is just such a big game for Campbellsville to hold their home turf against a very tough team, a top 10 team at that, in Life. So, I mean, that's just flat out amazing. Congratulations to Campbellsville on a big win. That will definitely put them in some top 25 consideration here, to say the least. In one of the most exciting games of the week, we had number 14 St. Francis take on Cumberland, where Cumberland pushed St. Francis to their very limits here. They made it 14-14 at the end of the fourth quarter, but St. Francis prevailed with a 21-14 win to avoid the upset. Looking at the stats here, it was not Gianna Reyes' best game. She went 28 for 43 for 222 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 4 turnovers. And that definitely played a factor here in getting Campbellsville in this game. Because when you look at Madison Woodard's stats, 24 completions, 49 attempts, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, only 1 interception. That is very key to them staying in that game. You also had Reyes get 85 rushing yards total on 10 attempts. And looking at St. Francis's receivers, you already know Harmony Walker led the team with 83 receiving yards on 7 receptions with a receiving touchdown. You also had Mackenzie Fuse and then Ava Cousins get a receiving touchdown as well here. For Cumberland's receivers, Marley Hyde had another great game. 9 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And then Jolea Cole with a big game, 8 receptions for 66 yards. And Gabby Orsi caught the other receiving touchdown here for Cumberland. On defense for St. Francis, Haley Witherspoon had 2 tackles for loss, while also tying for the team lead in flagpoles with 5. And then you also had Yolanda Barrera and Madison Huggins. They both had a tackle for loss. Let's check out Cumberland's defensive stats now. Breonna Taylor had 2 interceptions. Jada Starnes had an interception, and so did Candence Dedrick. Number 10, Weber International came back and got a big-time 19-0 shutout win over Alabama State. Looking at the stats here, Lutz Ariana Hernandez with 27 for 37, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Looking at the receivers here for Weber International, Riley Bolser led the way with 10 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. You also had Cheyenne Durand and Caitlin Sigmundi also get a receiving touchdown here. On defense for Weber, Quanisha Bonelli led the way with 4 flagpoles. You also had Kalia Gator get 2 sacks and 3 tackles for loss total. And Caitlin Sigmundi got an interception with Ziona Shingles also getting a tackle for loss here. Number 6 ranked Baker absolutely destroyed Bethel without even really having to pass the ball. The most amount of completions that a QB had in this game was 3, and they still managed to beat this team 82-0. That is absolutely ridiculous. Tara Lorente went 3 for 6 for 108 yards with 3 passing touchdowns and an interception. As far as rushing the ball goes, they had 6 rushing touchdowns as a team. Natalie Bush had 4 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown. Keely Phillips, 38 yards rushing with two rushing touchdowns. And then Alejandra Ramos with 57 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns herself here. You also had Sanaya Waller, who had 2 receptions, 72 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown in this game. On defense here, it looks like they had another great game with Kenya Arias getting 4 sacks. And then also Mariah Greenfield and Kayla Harrison got in there with a sack as well. Greenfield got herself an interception too. Number 4 ranked Kaiser only had 1 game this week in which they absolutely slaughtered Florida Memorial by a score of 71-0. They actually forced 6 interceptions on defense, but before I get there, Ava Wallace went 14 for 19 for 256 yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and only 1 interception. Adrian Rivera went 10 for 13, 117 yards, 3 touchdowns there. Sophia Caprio also had a passing touchdown in this game. As far as receiving goes, Ashley Clam had 4 receptions, 110 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Tremisha Harris balled out as well with 3 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown. Janasia Wilson had 2 receiving touchdowns, and so did Madison Koger. Looking on the defensive side of the ball for Kaiser, Dakota Moberg is adding to her Defensive Player of the Year candidacy with 8 total flagpoles, 3 interceptions in this game for her. Tremisha Harris had a big game as well with 7 flagpoles, 1 tackle for loss, and an interception. Hannah Jace got in there with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 6 total flagpoles. And then finally here, Ashley Clam and Madison Koger both had 1 interception apiece in this big win for Kaiser. In the game between number 8 ranked Life and number 12 ranked Lindsey Wilson, Life got a massive win, 40-12, for yet another signature win for this program this season. They kept Amaya Pablo to 17 of 40 passing, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. That is easily her worst game of the year. And on the flip side, Cheyenne Brooks might have had her best game of the year here. 20 completions, 29 attempts, 331 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and an interception. Now, looking here, Cheyenne Brooks also had a rushing touchdown to make it 6 total on the game. Just balling out like crazy. Looking at the receiving room for life, Deshae Branham had 9 receptions, 142 yards, and a touchdown. And Altiera Gooch, the baller here, 4 receptions, 74 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. You also had Kalanis Outlaw and Jayla Wright, who also had 1 receiving touchdown apiece. For life on defense, Kyra Zachary's been balling out all week. 4 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. You also had Trinity Hutchkins and Promise Cooper get 1 interception apiece. Now looking back over at Lindsey Wilson, Amaya Pablo did add 46 rushing yards with a rushing touchdown, so that is good there. For receivers, Harper Gregory had 1 receiving touchdown, and that was a 24-yarder. And then Carly Oakley led the way with 5 receptions for 57 yards. On defense here for Lindsey Wilson, Jenna Lindsay caught an interception. Emily Good led the way with 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and a sack. And in the last game here in a week full of action for NAIA in Week 7, we had Nevada State stomp down on Benedictine Mesa 44-0. And that, folks, is going to do it here for the recap on what happened in Week 7 in the NAIA division for women's flag football in the 2026 season. This is Gino with the Playmaker's Corner podcast, and I want to thank you all for listening here today, and I will see you all next week.
Hey, let's get it, PMC fam. We got D3 coverage from myself, Kodey Stoffer, this week, and we had a lot of games to go through. Not every single one of them close, but plenty of results to still discuss. Now, D3 is probably the most common one that doesn't report box scores, but also for blowouts, we'll save the box scores for a bit of the closer games as well. But let's start off on Monday, March 23rd. There was only one game here as Montclair State would win over Long Island University 58-0 behind a 7 interception performance from the defense, including 1 going to the house. Now on Tuesday the 24th, we had 3 games here where Eastern beat Immaculata 45-0, and Gino Seau lost to Roberts Wesleyan, or Geneseo, lost to Roberts Wesleyan 52-0. Can't wait for all the listeners to call me illiterate and not know about these places. And you know what? You just might be right. Maybe it's the CTE talking. But anyways, we did have a bit of a tight game here as Hartwick and Elmira would put together a very close game here. And the Hawks would hold off a second-half surge from Elmira. Now, Audra Dahl here did not complete a lot of passes, but 2 of her 3 completions went for touchdowns, and she tacked on another 97 yards on the ground as the Hawks flew through the air with completions of 51 and 50 to pull away. To Elmira's credit here, Hannah Smith put together a good game at quarterback, 34-54 for 321 yards and 3 scores to 1 pick. Meanwhile, Kylie Hook was going absolutely berserk, 16 receptions for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. And meanwhile, Faith Ingeber here had herself a game with 123 yards and a score on 10 receptions. But it would not be enough here as Hartwick gets their first win in program history, 26-18. Like I said, 50 yards, 51 yards for a couple of touchdowns there. 97 yards, including some long runs from Dahl, just proved to be pretty fiery. And on the defensive side of the ball, Hartwick was way more disruptive. 3 sacks, an interception, and 5 tackles for loss to slow down Elmira enough for the win. And the first one in program history. So congratulations to Hartwick on that one. Now, on the 25th, we did have a lot of games on this Wednesday here, starting off with a pair of games where Marymount would play Newman and Centenary and win by a combined 100-0. Now, Newman and Centenary would play each other as well, and in a lot of ways, Centenary outplayed Newman. They outgained them in first downs 16-9, outrushed them 120-106, and outpassed them 266-202. So when a team has nearly 100 more yards and nearly twice as many first downs, how do they lose? Well, if you're Newman, you force 3 interceptions and take 2 of those to the house, as well as get a punt return for a touchdown here, where the defense/special teams showed up huge for the Knights in this win. For Newman, Mary Berry had all 3 interceptions for a total of 94 interception return yards. Meanwhile, Tasia Gaskins would have a 40-yard punt return to make for a heck of a day for that unit. You also had Gaskins clocking in and getting a 66-yard reception for a touchdown, just generating multiple big plays. And Ava Valente here had a pretty good game for Newman. She ran for a score and threw 3, and also caught one from Kayla Maish as they exchanged passing and receiving touchdowns with one another, and just overall clicking on all cylinders and taking advantage of the mistakes that the Cyclones were making. Now for the Cyclones, Sophia Mendez had a monster game, 16 receptions, 149 yards, and 2 scores from Feaster, but Feaster throwing 6 scores and 2 of those to the other team makes it tough regardless of accounting for over 300 yards. You just have to protect the football. And so Newman beats Centenary 54-25. Penn State Schuylkill would have a close battle with Chestnut Hill, as Penn State would get off to a quick start, capturing a 13-0 lead, but Chestnut Hill would battle as Caroline Croteau would complete a pass to Bree Hicks for a score, making it 13-6 at halftime. Croteau would come out and find Yoraini Monero here in the third quarter, making it a 1-point game, 12-13. However, the Lions would pull away one last time, 19-12. Defensively, Kalia Brown was doing everything to keep the Griffins in this game, recording 11 flag pulls, 4 for loss, and Bree Hicks got an interception to match her touchdown on offense, but Penn State Schuylkill's defense was also balling out. They had 5 tackles for loss and 2 picks, courtesy of Miranda Morstadt and Michaela Hill. Morstadt was also the number 1 target on offense with 7 receptions for 93 yards and a score in addition to Kenzie Stoller and Michaela Johnson. Quarterback Avery Brown found all 3. Chestnut Hill's fortunes would not turn around as they would lose to Holy Family 45-6, and Holy Family would wrap up this little get-together 2-0, beating Penn State Schuylkill 21-7. The squad ran for over 175 yards and a pair of scores, while Alexis Tina McLeod caught a touchdown from Alice Davis as they just avoided mistakes and got the win. Avery Brown had a so-so performance, going 14 of 28 for 179 yards, and the lone score being caught by Miranda Morstadt, who's doing her thing, but Holy Family still gets the win. Now we have a couple of not close or box score ones here, as Gallaudet beat Howard Community College 52-0, Benedictine, Illinois fell to Bryan and Stratton 48-0 in some JUCO versus D3 matchups, and Redlands beat Long Beach State University 28-0 to improve to 9-7. On Thursday, the 26th, we only had 2 games as Aurora University beat Purdue University Northwest 33-12. Now, Purdue University Northwest was winning 12-0 after the first quarter, but Aurora would score 21 unanswered points to end the half and never looked back. Kaylin Morgan was efficient, throwing 4 touchdowns, no picks, and 186 yards. St. Joseph's Long Island got a win over St. Joseph's Brooklyn 19-8. No box score available. Fridays, the 27th of March. This had a lot of games today, so stay tuned with me. Brockport beat Russell Sage 26-12, and after jumping out to a 12-0 lead for Brockport, Russell surged back, tying up the game 12-12 in the second quarter. But the Golden Eagles would rush in a touchdown with Megan Gerber to take a lead they'd never relinquish. Gerber threw for over 120 and ran for 110 for 2 scores, and found Hannah Rockstrom and Caitlin Haw for touchdowns. She now has 10 touchdowns through 3 games, with 7 passing and 4 rushing. Brockport also had 8 tackles for loss and 4 pass breakups. Meanwhile, Bianca Ricciotto sparked the initial comeback for Russell Sage, finding Haley Blake for a score and rushing for a touchdown, but could not string enough completions to keep Sage in the game in the second half. Meanwhile, Kaylee Dean absolutely feasted on defense with 10 tackles, 3 sacks, and 4 TFLs, and what was a bright spot for the Gators moving forward. Geneseo beats Elmira 33-13. Ella Koopman did most of her damage rushing the football, in addition to Natalia DePalma, who both ran for a pair of scores and combined for over 180 yards. Defensively, this unit put the hurt on as Emily McLeod got 2 picks and a pass breakup, while Kenna McKenzie also recorded a turnover. Elmira's defense, despite what the box score says, were still making plays. Faith Ingber had 10 tackles and a pick with 3 pass breakups. Meanwhile, Kylie Hook had 3 sacks and 4 tackles for loss, with Olivia Keller adding a pair of sacks. Mariana Dixon had a pick, but offensively they completed under 50% of their passes, turned over 3 times, and couldn't get a ton of big plays on the ground to keep up. And finally, Cumberland beat Wittenberg, or I should say Wittenberg lost, as I'm presenting from the D3 level, 0-54. The following Saturday, they would drop 2 games to Lindsey Wilson and Sienna Heights at the Flag Frenzy in Campbellsville. Huntington then beat down Andrew College to start off their week and go 1-0, 58-0. And we're back to Hartwick and Geneseo here in a close contest. Hartwick would score first on a Zoe Sullivan touchdown catch and then increase their lead with a Kendra Charlin pick 6 to go up 12-0. However, Geneseo would rally with scores in the third and fourth quarter, including a PAT, to take the 13-12 lead. However, Dahl would dial up a deep ball, or a big pass, I should say, to Bailey McCoy, who would take it 54 yards to the house. And with the PAT, they would pull ahead 20-13 for the final result of this game. Dahl on the day had 284 all-purpose yards, and defensively, outside of Charland, Zion Harrison and Reese Malfedone both recorded 2 sacks, with Ellie Callback's 11 pulls. Karina Dunn had both receiving touchdowns for Geneseo from Ella Koopman, but too much indecision amidst the pressure spelled too many stall-outs on drives to pull this one out. Centenary got a win over Chestnut Hill College 19-0 as Amani Blucher took over, recording 3 receiving touchdowns from quarterback Keisha Feaster. Meanwhile, defensively, the Cyclones caused problems with 4 interceptions as Mackenzie Almestica, Sophia Mendez, and Cameron Fulcher all got in the action. Their luck would not continue, however, as Eastern's quick start would be too much for Centenary to come back over in a 49-25 win for Eastern. Kira Green would throw for over 200 yards and 3 scores, fighting Demae Moye for 2 scores and 128 yards. Massenberg continued to do her thing with 14 tackles, 3 for loss, a sack, and a rushing touchdown. And defensively, Jariah Johnson notched a pair of picks. For Centenary, Feaster recorded an interception, and Sophia Mendez continued her high volume here with 11 receptions, leading both teams and picking up 86 yards on those receptions. Feaster and Ariana Campbell also both ran for scores as Feaster threw for the other 2, but that would not be enough to keep up with Eastern's high-scoring performance. Newman would top Penn State Schuylkill 40-12. Eva Valente played pretty darn good, throwing for 4 touchdowns and 231 yards, and ran for another as 4 different receivers caught scores, and Sam Knight had 2 interceptions for Newman. Eastern would beat Chestnut Hill 40-6 to close out their little jamboree performance in New Jersey. Keene would defeat Howard Community College 33-0, but they would lose to Bryant and Stratton in a nail-biter 12-6. Penn State Harrisburg would beat Cairn 12-0. Cairn hung in there with 2 interceptions, but was outgained on offense by nearly 100 yards and had no answers for Harrisburg's rushing attack. Cairn would score in their next game 7 points, but not enough as they fell to Gallaudet. They hung in there with a monster performance from Juliana Condorso, who recorded 4 of the team's 5 sacks. Clara Talavsky here also flew around the field with 9 tackles and 2 PBUs. But despite the setbacks, Gianna Visco didn't let the pressure force a bad turnover, passing for 261 yards and 2 scores to no interceptions, in addition to a rushing touchdown. Also for Gallaudet, Citrine Lummer had 9 receptions for 125 yards and 1 of the 2 scores for Gallaudet. Brittany Rivera would have the other one and defensively have herself a day with 3 sacks. Gallaudet would then outclass Penn State Harrisburg en route to a 34-20 win. They would outgain Harrisburg 319 to 239 yards and force 4 interceptions, taking one to the house in a 20-point quarter that blew this game open. Jordan Carpenter was doing her best to carry Harrisburg in this game as she had 5 receptions for 144 yards and 2 scores, one of those receptions going for 66 yards. And the Harrisburg defense also had 8 sacks, including 5 from Aliana Labiere, but that would not be enough. Gianna Visco remained effective, throwing for 245 yards and 3 scores to just 1 pick, while escaping from the rush to the tune of 73 yards and a score. Citrine Lummer was the primary target, reeling in 13 receptions for 158 yards and 2 scores in dominant fashion. Without a box score, we had Cedar Crest overpowering Lancaster Bible on the road 24-0. But then Keystone would ride a safety to a close win over Cedar Crest. Jasmine George scored a 78-yard pick 6 for Cedar Crest, as well as 7 tackles. But Keystone just barely pulled this one out, due in part to Desiree Stamps' 2 interceptions, 6 TFLs, and 98 rushing yards along with the score here. That would be enough for Keystone to barely pull this one out over Cedar Crest. They would then finish 2-0 in this little get-together with a 31-0 win over Lancaster. LaGrange would lose to Florida Memorial 0-66 and then beat the College of DuPage 9-7. Mount St. Mary beat Old Westbury 33-0, but then lost to St. Joseph's University Long Island by the same score. St. Joseph's Brooklyn would beat Old Westbury 20-9. And then in some weird Saturday-Sunday action here with these 2-day tournaments, Allegheny beat Sacred Heart 19-6 and 7-0 on Saturday and Sunday respectively, but then they would lose 2 games on Saturday and Sunday respectively, 13-6 and 26-12. Mercy University would go 2-2 in their tournament, winning 1 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. They would pull out a close win as Osagi Iris ran in for the lone score in an overtime win. But then they would lose to Cortland 13-6 and start off their Sunday with a loss to Villa Maria 6-0 before scoring on the opening drive in their last game. Shao would run and score and not look back as she would get 2 rushing touchdowns and pass to LaQuinta and Joanna Sad for the other scores. Now, I did a baller recap of Illinois College and Illinois Wesleyan, so please listen to that. And by baller, I mean best I could do in a play-by-play scenario here, but it was ultimately a really close game with very exciting stuff to wrap up Saturday. Can you believe that was all on Saturday, as we just have a few games left here on Sunday? We had Marymount, who beat Holy Family, and Immaculata 85-0 combined. They had, over the course of their undefeated week, 495 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, 14 passing touchdowns, 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 12 interceptions, just disrupting everything that other teams had going on. Now, in their matchup, Immaculata would scoot back from a 7-0 pit to score twice, once in the second, once in the third, to beat Holy Family 14-7. Passing was essentially the same by both squads, but Immaculata forced 2 interceptions and was more effective running the football, 75-47, in this low-scoring contest. And with Eliana Satkowski here being the difference, she had both interceptions and took one to the house in this one-score game, making Holy Family pay for their mistakes. And finally, Keene here would go 0-2 on Sunday, losing to Villa Maria and Rutgers 25-6 and 25-12 in their losses to wrap up my D3 recap for this week. Once again, check out my attempt at that Illinois Wesleyan Illinois College game that had a signature performance in it from some great athletes, as well as just a bit of back and forth, and that Illinois rivalry that we want to fester and grow for some more instant classics. And be sure to listen to Coach V as well as Gino's recaps of some crazy games and their divisions for this week. I've been your host for the Division 3 segment, this time around, Kodey Stauffer, signing off. Hello, everybody. I am your host for the Division 3 segment of flag football this go around here, and I'm going to be covering an Illinois showdown between Illinois College and Illinois Wesleyan here. This game was super back and forth, super tight, but you had the big names making the big plays at the right time here in this tug of war for the Battle of Illinois. Now, Illinois College would start with the ball, and Osmus, I believe is how you say her name, picked up a first down with her feet, but the drive would stall out and they would have to punt. Wesleyan would eventually find themselves in an ideal 3rd and 3, but would lose a ton of yards on that next play here and have to turn over on downs. These two teams would go back and forth, kind of exchanging these soft kind of body shots here, as Illinois College would come out and gain 5 yards on a pass to Flowers and 4 on a rush, but after an incompletion, their drive would also stall out. Knidglia would come out and find NAIA Glover for 10 yards, and then Stallings twice in a row for 13 yards and a first down into IC territory. Wesleyan, however, would turn the ball over and IC would have possession, and after Osmus would rush for a first down, that would be followed by a big-time Illinois Wesleyan sack that would ultimately kill this drive and result in a punt. Wesleyan would have a chance to respond, but on 4th down, IC would make a huge stop to force a TOD. A few incompletions at the end of the IC drive, however, would result in Wesleyan now having a shot to get on the board. And on this drive, an IC penalty would help keep the drive alive and push Wesleyan deep into IC territory, where in the second quarter, on 4th down, Emma Knidglia would find Maylin Nunez for a touchdown, and following the conversion of the PAT, it'd be a Wesleyan Titan lead, 7-0 early in the second quarter. Now, trying to go stride for stride here, Osmus would start the drive off, finding Ariana Morris for a first down, but that would be the end of their success, and they would have to punt. Wesleyan would punt right back, and it wouldn't take long on this drive for IC to get going, as Osmus would find Elijah Parks for a 61-yard pass, pushing them inside of Wesleyan's 10-yard line. But the Titans' defense remained resilient, forcing the Blue to take a timeout. But that's just what they needed, as following the timeout, Ella Osmus powered in and tied this game 7-7. Wesleyan, looking to score here before half, would go on a 12-play, 62-yard, 5+ minute drive that ate up the rest of the half, but the Blue Boy defense held strong in the red zone and made this game a tie heading into half. Now, Knidglia and the Titans came out believing in the second half, as she immediately found N. Stallings 3 straight times for 44 yards, setting up 1st and 10 on the IC-22, and from there the good times kept rolling as NAIA Glover caught open and caught the touchdown that put Wesleyan ahead 13-7. But the relentless fury of the Titans was not over, as Knidglia, now on the defensive side of the ball, would pick the ball off, run 20 yards to the house, and score, putting Wesleyan up 19-7 just 2 minutes into the second half. IC here trying to mellow out, keep this game close, has to find a rhythm here, and Osmus comes out and finds Abby Flowers early into the drive, who gets all the way to midfield, but the drive would stall out just a few yards past midfield, and Wesleyan would get the ball back. Now the Titans offense did not have the same magic, despite Deanna Sarabia, I want to say is how you say that, picked up a first down, but they would eventually turn over on downs on the IC-29. The Blue drive itself wasn't anything special, but in interest of the field position game, Osmus's punt pinned IWU back at their 14-yard line after a short return for a reset in neither team's enemy territory. Emma, however, came out, ran for a first down, but only a few plays later found herself in 3rd and 18. But no discomfort was shown, complete poise, as she ran for 20 yards and a first down to take the clock and this game into the fourth quarter, where the plan was for the Titans to finish this one out. Sarabia was doing her part, notching some receptions all the way to the 29, before Lily Greenfield made a 17-yard reception, putting Wesleyan into the red zone. And so I see here they need a stop if they want to have a chance here in the fourth quarter. It's going to be really hard to come back from 3 plays here. But, a couple of short gains and a couple of plays later, along with a penalty here, Wesleyan finds themselves in a deep hole, but Emma Knizlia turns to her legs as she did during all pivotal moments of this drive and reaches pay dirt. And with a PAT, the Titans are now up 26-7. And after exchanging of possessions, Osmus pieced together a nice drive, finding 3 different receivers to get into Wesleyan territory before Reagan Oster came in and finished the drive with an Abby Flowers score. But it would be too little too late as only 1:22 was on the clock, and Malin Nunez would run out the clock, securing the 26-13 Illinois Wesleyan win over Illinois College. Now, Osmus here for IC tried to make things interesting, tried to get this game going. She eclipsed over 200 total yards passing and rushing with the score to her name, but too many times this offense stalled out with incompletions and run plays that just didn't go anywhere, and having to punt did not keep up with the playmaking that Wesleyan had on the other side. And I would definitely say that the pick six was the real kind of momentum swing that put this game out of reach, despite the great effort from Osmus, as well as Abby Flowers, who led her squad with 7 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. But this game belongs to Emma Knizlia here in an absolute masterclass. 29 of 47, 202 yards and 2 touchdowns to no interceptions. Also tacking on 62 rushing yards and that rushing touchdown that put this game out of reach, and the pick six that really swung this game wide open. It is a definite candidate for Playmaker of the Week here. And also for Illinois Wesleyan, I had to look at Nikila Mason, who is balling out on defense, 10 tackles and 3 of those for loss, while the team itself put together 7 total tackles for loss, as Illinois Wesleyan pulls ahead and finishes the job against Illinois College 26-13.
Alrighty, thank you so much for rocking with us. No, this is a long episode, but like I said, just our games recap. Make sure you check out our next one, episode 508, which will drop on Thursday here in April. I think April 2nd, where we will do our rankings and recognition episode, recognizing some great performances, ranking some great teams. I know we just got our rankings in actually just now. It's finalized from week 7, so we'll be making sure we get that all set up here. But it's looking like a whole bunch of changes, and it could be interesting. And then on top of that, we're gonna announce some of our front runners for our end of the year awards here at the mid-season mark. So there you go there. Make sure you show us love on social media at Playmakers Corner. Check out our website at playmakerscorner.com. But until next time, we will catch you later.